Thank you, Dr. Kika. Eduze kwakhe sinomhlonishwa uShinga. Eduze kwakhe sinomhlonishwa uNgubane. Eduze kwakhe sinomhlonishwa uHlonga Madlala. Eduze kwakhe sinomhlonishwa uMthethwa. Eduze kwakhe sinomhlonishwa umntana enkosi uKhawula. Manje ngizwa abanye bembiza ngoKhawunda. Angazi sekwenze njani. Mhlawumbe bafuna ukuba emeya mhlonishwa. Ngibonga kakhulu bahlonishwa ukuthi nikwazi ukuthola ithuba lokuthi nithamele lo mhlangano. Sana nama officials ke maningi mhlawumbe kuzoba nohlelo lokuwathula okwami ngicela nje ukubingelela kini nonke endlini. Ngibingelela abefundisi mebekhona, ngibingelela amakhansela akhona. Ngiyathemba ukuthi laba abasebenza samsana nabo basazongenzela uhlelo lokwazi ukuthi ngibanikele kahle ozakwethu abamakhansela ngoba thina nabo sisesimene esifanayo sokuthi umsebenzi wethu uphakamiselwe izandla njalo emva ka5 years. So ke lethu nabahlonishwa nje ithuba lomsebenzi seliya ngakhona ekupheleni. So ke ngiyafisa nje ukubingelela ngokukhethekileyo. Ngiyacela gugu ningilekelele into ezinjalo ukuthi makunamakhansela siwabhale ukuze siwamukele kahle emhlanganweni ngoba abaholi bomphakathi. Ningibhalele amakhosi mekhona kwenzela ukuthi sibamukele kahle. Kungathi wasafika emhlanganweni senza izinto eziphoxayo. So ke ngifisa nje ukubingelela ama-officials e-legislature esihamba nawo, ama-officials e-Department of Education aphuma kuzwelonke, ama-officials e-education aphuma kwi-province ma ekhona. Bese kafishane ngichaza ukuthi umhlangano ungani. I was saying there would be, I'm sure there would be proper way of using other languages because I'm worried about singing out English because I might be accused of singing out one language, but there will be translations proper when the bill is explained to us because we have all the intentions that everyone must understand what is this meeting about. So I will use both Zulu and English. I'm not very good with English, but I will try just to so that we take everyone along. So kafishane ngizochaza ukuthi umhlangano njengoba nazi ukuthi kunomthetho sivivinyo ohlongozwayo obizwa nge-Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill B2B 2022 abathi mebe ubiza kafishane bathi BELA kwenzela ukuthi sisheshe sazi ukuthi sikhuluma ngento efanayo. Umsebenzi wethu ke njengekomiti lezemfundo ngenzela ukuthi ngicacise lento umhlangano uqala nje kwenzela ukuthi singabi nokuphikisana sesiphakathi nendawo ukuzolalela ukuthi abantu bakithi bathini ngalomthetho sivivinyo. Umthetho sivivinyo ke lo usudlulile esigabeni sikazwelonke ingoba usukuma provinces manje sekufanele ke sizwe izimvo zomphakathi wakwaZulu-Natal njengekomiti lezemfundo ukuthi nithini ngalomthetho sivivinyo obhekelele ukuthi kulungiswe imithetho ebhekelene nezemfundo. Ngiyafisa ukuthi ngiyicacisele abantu bakithi ngoba kukhona okukhulunywayo la enkundleni zokuxhumana okuthiwa kukhulunywa ngawo kulomthetho. Uzosihamba nabameli ke la bazoyichaza abameli ukuthi ngokomthetho uthini, kodwa khona izinto engifuna ukuyibalula ezingekho kulomthetho esizokhuluma ngawo namhlanje. Ngenza ukuthi manisukuma ningakhulumi ngazo ngoba azikho. Kukhona abathi sikhuluma ukuthi ingane ezincane kufanele zifundiswe ucansi nokulalana ezikoleni, akukho kulomthetho osivivinyo. So ke ngenzela ukuthi nicaciseleke ngoba kukhona izinto ezikhulunywayo einkundleni zokuxhumana ezikhuluma ngezinto ezifana nalezo. Kukhona ukuthi izikole ngeke ziphinde zibe namandla, aseyaphucwa wonke amandla ama-governing bodies ayiswa iminyango noma kubaphathi beminyango. Okunye okungafundikiwayo kahle ngoba akukho akubekiwe ngalolo hlobo. So ngenzela ukuthi ngifuna ukunxusa ukuthi nilalelisise ngesikhathi abameli beyichaza lo mthetho ngoba imbono yenu ibalekile, kodwa futhi imbono yenu uma ingayona imbono equkethwe lo mthetho sivivinyo kuzoba imbono nje engeke siyisebenzise ndawo. Ngizonxusa ukuthi silalelisise ukuze sizwe ukuthi uthini umthetho sivivinyo, ukwenza ukuthi ngesikhathi sesithola ithuba lokubeka imbono kube imbono yento ade esithulelwe yona la endlini. I was saying our legal advisors and our legal team, they will present the bill and they will explain in detail what this bill is about. But also they will explain, I'm sure I will ask Monica to do this right at the beginning, explain what is this bill it's not about, so that we don't confuse ourselves or we don't get confused and discuss things that are not in the bill. I know there are certain things that are circulating in different social media. I was listening to a voice note this morning as I was driving here. One of them says, the bill says we'll teach 5-year-olds what is sex, how to sleep. We'll teach them how a 12-year-old must do abortion. It's not in the bill. I'm saying it in English because the voice note how a 12-year-old must do abortion. I do want us to carefully listen. I hope there are also enough copies for those who would want to go and read properly what is in the bill, so that our suggestions and comments we are limited to what the bill contains, instead of things that are really sometimes misleading, deliberately, sometimes because of ignorance. So let's not entertain those things. Let's entertain why this bill is important, because as you know that for example, the bill touches on issues of grade R, which were not part of the Schools Act, as we know it. So every now and then you amend the laws of the country. So this is an exercise, very important exercise, because it touches on the future of our learners, our educators. So educators must take an interest, because I know there are sections that deal with them and doing business with the state, for example. So it's a very important bill. I will rate it as high as the National Health Insurance Bill. So we really do want to hear your voices. we are not doing this exercise just to tick boxes. And we are not doing you a favor. The Constitution demands of us to do this exercise. So, bengithi emphathi wakithi okunye okubalekile ngendlela nje yokuvula ukuthi lo mhlangano akukho ufefe noma ubele esinenzela bona umthetho sisekelo esazenzela wona njengezwe osiphoqayo ukuthi sikwazi ukuza kini makuzoshaya imithetho sinilalele izivo zenu. So akekho umuntu onenzela ufefe noma ubele yingoba kufanele sikwenze lokhu ukuthi makuzoshaya imithetho size emphakathini yakithi silalele izivo zayo ukwenzela ukuthi umthetho niwa kube owenu kungathiwa umthetho njengoba ayisikuhlale osonjika no babukhawula benza umthetho ngoba abantu baseningizimu Afrika bayingxenye yawo. So ke silethe umthetho sisekelo la sizocela ke sibambisane ngokuthi ngesikhathi benza izethulo nibhale phansi imibuzo yenu ngoba sizobayeka baze baqede ukwenza izethulo nibhale imibuzo uzothi mebeqeda yabona ama members la ayivakashi namhlanje ngoba ayithola ithuba lokukhuluma lezi zinto uzothi mabeqeda sinike nina ithuba kodwa ngoba sibaningi mangase ngikunike i-hour wedwa kusho ukuthi kungenzeka sihambe kusasa ekseni la okungalula ke lokho. So sizonitime ukuthi cha usukhulume isikhathi esenele umbono wakho uzwakele zimbili into ezicela sizenze ukuthi ubeke umbono wokuthi ucabanga ukuthi umthetho sisekelo singawenza kanjani umthetho sivivinyo lesikhuluma ngawo le bill ungenziwa kanjani ube ngcono noma uyawuthanda ube unjengoba unjalo uyawuvuma noma uyaphikisana nawo kodwa futhi nazi izathu ucabanga ukuthi ukuze ungaphikisana nawo ungase kufaka ukuthi ungavumelana nawo. Lokho kuzokwenza ukuthi sonke sibe baningi sizothola ithuba lokuphawula kodwa ungayiphindi futhi into esishiwo bakithi. Eminye imihlangano idonsiswa ukuthi ngithanda nje ukuzizwa embhobheni kade umuntu nje ekhulume into efana ngqo nami kodwa ngifune futhi nami ukuyisho mhlawumbe nje sengiyibeka ngesizulu esihlukile bese kodwa ngisho kodwa into efanayo sizocela ke usibambisane lapho ke unkosazana Wilson ummeli wekomiti lezemfundo laKwaZulu-Natal ummeli kwishamthetho kodwa futhi ubekwe ukuthi abe ummeli kule komiti lethu lezemfundo uyena ke uzobe senzela isethulo okuzobe ecacisa kabanzi ngegatshana zalomthetho. I was appealing that when they make the presentation, our legal advisor, Monica Wilson, who's going to be doing the presentation on the sections of this Amendment Act, I appeal that you take notes because we will only allow you to make comments or ask questions after she has done with her presentation. I don't know whether they've made arrangements in terms of how the translations will be done as they do that. Please take notes. And when they are done, we'll then open the floor for everyone who wants to make a comment or a suggestion to better the law. The comment that we are not going to take is a comment that says we must not have the amendments. The comments we need are about how we make these amendments better, but also comments that suggest whether you agree or disagree with the amendments as they stand now. But I'm also appealing that if a colleague has asked the question that you wanted to ask, it's okay. That question will be the same. Rather, not ask it because it will have been asked, so the response will in any sense be the same. So let's say that's how we're going to run our meeting. We will try and fit as many voices as possible. But as you know, meetings have starting time and ending time. We're not going to have a meeting until next day. There are options of writing to us as the committee. I'm sure that will be made available to you. There are forms that are going to be circulated as well, where you can also make your own suggestions without raising them here. All suggestions, all of them, will be taken into account, whether they are in a written form or you stood up and said them here. So they will be taken into account. But also there is a process that is still open, that you write to the committee and make your proposals as well. So leyo abangafisi noma abangazukwazi ukukhuluma basenalo ithuba lokusibhalela kuneform abazoyikhipha la ezokwenza ukuthi ukwazi ukubhala incomo zakho. Nivumelekile ukubhala nanoma ngayiphi ulimi, any language, ungathi ngoba kubhalwe ngesigisi ngeke ngikwazi ukuphawula. So lawo ma forms nenelungelo lokubhala imbono yenu, sizoyifunda yonke imbono ngoba kufanele umthetho uyasiphoqa ukuthi sikwenze lokho. So kukhona futhi isikhathi esisavuliwe ukuthi nibhalele ikomiti even after lo mhlangano, ukuthi nibhalele ekomidini ukuthi ithini imbono yenu ngalo mthetho sivivinyo. So without really wasting your time, it is now 10 to 11. So ngizocela usisi dadwethu ofundeleke wagogoda kwezomthetho ukuthi azosichazela ngokuthi ke umiswe kanjani, zithini iphakamiso zalomthetho sivivinyo obizwa ngeBELA kafishane, okuthiwa i-Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. Monica, I hand over to you now.
Sanbani, good morning. Morning to the chairperson, morning to the honorable members, our colleagues, and the colleagues who have also joined us virtually, and to all the stakeholders who are here present and the ones who have joined us online. And as the chairperson has said, I'm going to be presenting this bill known as BELA in short, Basic Education Laws Amendment. And the background to this bill, if I can just give a short background, is that it has emanated from National Department of Basic Education because the minister identified that the review of education legislation is one of their strategic priorities. So once the minister had identified this as a priority, she picked out two bills for amendment. One is the South African Schools Act, and the second one is the Employment of Educators Act. So the bill we are going to be speaking about has about 40 clauses which are amending the South African Schools Act, and about 10 clauses at the end we will be speaking about amendment of the Employment of Educators Act. Now, what were the reasons? Because the minister cannot just decide to amend laws without a reason. And one of the main reasons is that there have been a lot of court judgments, a lot of litigation that emanated from especially admission of learners, the language policy, and issues of discrimination against learners when it comes to admission. So the minister wants to make sure that there is implementation of those court judgments and the decisions that were made in order to protect the rights of all people who are involved in those kind of cases and to give effect especially to the Bill of Rights. If you've got a copy of the bill and you actually go to page 36 and 37 of the bill, you will see a summary of some of those cases. Some of them were from schools like MLO School in Free State. You will see cases there from Welcome High School, Harmony High School in Free State. Some of you may remember those cases. You will see them on pages 36 and 37 of the bill, and they will explain to you what the minister was ordered by the courts to implement. The next reason is that they want to provide for financial and public accountability, especially for school governing bodies, because school governing bodies manage public funds. So there has to be accountability and reporting on public funds. And then they also want to improve the systems on the admission of learners. There have been a lot of issues on the admission of learners, especially relating to the kind of documents that parents are required to submit. Now, they want to improve that system. And one of the things you will find in the definitions, which is a good thing for the parents, is there is now a very comprehensive list of the documents that parents can give, including affidavits, birth certificates, unabridged. So if you go to the definitions and you please read the definition of required documents so that there is no misinformation about the requirements for admission of learners. So that was another thing that is leading to this amendment. And then they want to provide additional powers, regulatory powers, yes, to the HOD and to the MEC so that it makes it easier for them to make decisions, and also for the appeal process for anyone who is not satisfied by decisions taken by the HOD, taken by a school. Then that process is explained very well, you'll see when we go through the bill. And then addressing other issues such as central procurement. This you will see, it is not something compulsory. There's a lot of consultation that needs to take place between the HOD and school governing bodies. And they also want to look at clarifying the home education, the process of applying, the role of parents in home education and such issues. And then also to bring in a clause about dispute resolution, so that whenever there is a dispute in matters that affect the right of a learner, cases don't take years and years to resolve. So they want a process that is going to be faster, an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. And then finally, the other reason is that there are, of course, technical reasons, such as removing some obsolete words or clauses that were there before. The minister, when they started this process, as far back probably as 2017, they have gone through a very comprehensive consultation process. And in 2017, the minister received over 5,000 written submissions. The minister has also consulted extensively with school governing bodies, teacher unions, and home education stakeholders. The minister has also consulted with NEDLAC and went as far as getting a social impact assessment done. And all the recommendations that came from that assessment have been incorporated in this bill. So what is important to note is that you must have the correct bill when you make your comments, because since 2017 up to now, there have been very many changes that have been made. And you'll see that in 2021, again, the minister presented the draft that they had to cabinet. In 2022, it went to the portfolio committee in the National Assembly. And once it goes there again, they take into account all the comments that people have made, and they amend that bill as well. And eventually last year in 2023, we received the current bill that we are now presenting to you. So that bill has now been approved by National Assembly. It's gone to the National Council of Provinces. It's now referred to us as the provincial legislature. And through this committee, we are required by the Constitution to get your comments. And that's why the chairperson says, kindly give us comments on the correct bill. We have put it on our website. Now, if I can go into the bill itself, and I will go clause by clause. I think it is being, I think it's there. I can't see what is on the screen. But if you look at clause 1, if you have a copy of the bill, it's also there in isiZulu, explaining it clause by clause. The first clause deals with definitions, and there are various definitions that have been amended in the South African Schools Act. And the first one is the one that the chairperson mentioned, that basic education has now been defined to include grade R, which was not there before. So,
Thank you.
okay. It includes grade R so that it can be in line with the national curriculum statement. The next definition, I will not go through all of them. I'll just highlight some of the important ones or the controversial ones. Competent assessor. Competent assessor is going to mean an educator who is registered with SAIS or is a recognized profession in the field of education, or is a person or body registered with the South African Qualifications Authority. And this competent assessor is important for people who are doing home education. Parents who teach their children at home are going to be required, as you will see when we get into the bill, to ensure that a competent assessor gives a report. And that's the definition of who that competent assessor will be. The next highlighted definition is corporal punishment, because this, despite being abolished, is still happening in schools and in hostel accommodations. And corporal punishment has now been widened to mean any deliberate act against a child that inflicts pain or physical discomfort. And it's not just hitting a child. It's also slapping, pinching, kicking, shaking, throwing objects, forcing children to stay in uncomfortable positions. You know, when teachers or people make them do squats and things that they shouldn't be doing as a punishment. Anything that forces a child to do exercises which are not in accordance with the curriculum. Right times 100 that I'm naughty, I'm naughty. Things like that must be taken into account now, because it's going to amount to assault. And anybody who does this to a child can face imprisonment if convicted up to a period of 12 months. The next addition in the definitions is the word special education needs. And that is because although special needs schools are mentioned a lot in the South African Schools Act, it hasn't been properly defined. It is now defined. And other definitions that I want to point out is home education, which means a program of education for a learner that is alternate to school attendance. I think for school governing bodies, it's important for them to note the definition of what alone means, because you will be required that if you enter into lease agreements or any other business things that you do with companies, you need to know the requirements. For instance, you may be required to get permission from the HOD. And the other one I'm emphasizing is the definition of required documents for admission of learners. And I think looking at the definition of drug is also important, because it has been expanded there to explain what a drug is when the educators, the principals do search and seizure in schools, and because we know of the problem of drugs in schools. So that is clause 1 on definitions. If I can now move to the page that starts with clause 2. And clause 2 is about compulsory attendance. It is amending section 3.1 of the South African Schools Act. And as we have mentioned, it's now making it compulsory that school will start from grade R at the age of 6. So every parent or guardian must cause a learner to attend school in the year in which that learner turns 6. And it's now provided that if there is no just cause, it's not that you can just be arrested. There must be just cause or a reason. If there is just cause why that learner is not in school, then the penalty, conviction, has been increased from 6 months to 12 months. So unlike what is being said out there that parents will now be arrested if you don't take your child to school, there has to be a reason why and just cause why that has not happened. And the HOD may actually write to a parent and inquire as to why that child is not in school. The next one is about clause 3, is speaking about the monitoring of school attendance by educators, principals, and the school governing body. And the reason for monitoring is that there is a high rate of dropout and truant children, learners, you find them out in the streets and things like that. And the role of the teachers has been clarified. Because you're a teacher and you're with the learners every day, if a student has not been in class for 3 days consecutive, then you're required to report to your principal. Then if the principal still finds out that learner is not in school for 24 hours from when he got a report, then the principal must at least reach the family or find out what's going on. And then the principal must also inform the school governing body. So everybody has a role to ensure that there's monitoring of learners where it's possible. And then for the school governing body, they are required, when they have their code of conduct, to have a rule that speaks to punctuality and school attendance. Clause 4, which has been a bit controversial, is amending Section 5 of SASSA, and this is to deal with the admission of learners. And what this is providing is correct, that a school governing body must submit their admission policy to the head of department for approval. And any amendments that they make to that policy must also be submitted to the HOD for approval. And however, the HOD has a very comprehensive process that they have to follow in considering that application, that policy. The HOD has to consult with the school governing body. HOD must check that that policy is actually in the interest of learners. HOD must also check on the resources of the school when they speak about their admission policy, as well as the needs of the community in that area that we are talking about. And this policy also speaks about there should be no discrimination for admission of learners in public schools, including that if a learner does not have the relevant documents, they should be allowed to attend school. And now it's up to the principal to consult with the parents and make sure that they get the correct documents. If the school governing body is not happy with the process of approval or decline by the HOD, they have a right of appeal to the MEC. If a learner is also not happy that they haven't been admitted in a particular school, they also have a right of appeal. Clause 5 speaks to language policy. And as we know, language policy has determined by school governing body. But now this section is providing that the language policy must be limited to 1 or 2 of the official South African languages. And as we know now, sign language is also an official sign language in the country. So the school governing body must submit a language policy of that school and any amendments thereof to the head of department. And the head of departments, once again, when they are considering that policy, they must be satisfied that this language policy caters for the needs of the community in that area, the district within which that school is located. And the HOD has now been empowered that they can actually ask for a school to have more than 1 language of instruction. However, everything comes with a condition. The HOD, especially in section 6, subsection 14, it says that the HOD must check the resources of that school if you're going to ask a school to have 2 languages of instruction. And there are other conditions that you will find in this section. The HOD also, when looking at the language policy, must really take into account the best interest of the learner, especially as provided for in the Constitution, for the learner to be able to access basic education. HOD must also look at the enrollment trends, the changing numbers of learners who speak the language, and follow due process in doing all these things. And these 2 policies, the admission policy and the language policy, can both be amended after a period of 3 years. And once again, anybody who is unhappy with the decision of the HOD, they have a right of appeal, and there are very stringent timeframes for both the HOD and the MEC. So the HOD also needs to look at the timeframes that they have been given for them to approve or decline policies or any issues that have been submitted to them. Clause 6 is amending Section 6A of SASSA, and all that it's doing is empowering the minister to appoint outside agencies or persons who can advise the ministers on matters relating to the national curriculum. Clause 7 is amending Section 8A, and this is to do with the code of conduct. And every code of conduct for a school must not just comply with the provincial law, but must comply with the constitution. And you will also know that, like I've said, there have been several judgments dealing with issues, and therefore school governing bodies must consult with the parents, with the learners and educators, and also look at the diverse cultures and beliefs of the learners that they have in school. There is also a provision in this section that says a parent can write and request for exemption from certain parts of the code of conduct applying to their student, depending on the circumstances. You will find that in detail if you read that section. Clause 8 deals with the random search and seizure, and it is amending Section 8A of the South African Schools Act. Previously, it used to be that the principal or their delegated person could only search a group of learners. Now they are empowered to search an individual learner. And this search and seizure is to deal with also dangerous objects and liquor or drugs that are brought into school, because no one can bring dangerous objects, drugs, or school. So the principal has a right for random search and seizure. The process is very detailed in Section 8A on what needs to be done. And for instance, if there is reasonable suspicion, also how the HOD can involve the police and how the police can be required to assist in removing whatever has been found. So you will find that process of search and seizure in Clause 8, Section 8A has been amended. The next proposal is to amend Section 9 of SASSA. And this is on the list of serious misconducts. Now that we've talked about the code of conduct, we talked about search and seizure. There is now an expanded list on serious misconduct that affect learners. And this is to clarify what will now constitute serious misconduct, and that can lead to suspension or precaution, and the process again that is going to be followed. And the list is long, and it includes things like assault, bullying, drugs, dangerous objects being found on the learner, cheating in exams or anything to do with exams, theft, dangerous objects. You'll find that list in that has been amended. Clause 10 amends Section 10 of SASSA, and this is to provide that corporal punishment is abolished. I just read for you the definition of what corporal punishment means. So corporal punishment is abolished during a school activity or in a hostel accommodation for learners. And again, I said any person who contravenes this can be convicted for assault for a period of up to 12 months. Clause 11 is amending Section 10A of SASSA, and it prohibits initiation practices in a hostel or during any school activity. Clause 12 is amending Section 12 of SASSA, and this is to do with the new schools called Specialized Focus on Talent Schools. So an SC, school governing body can apply to the MEC to be designated as a specialized school. It can be because of sports, arts, performing arts, and the HOD can also identify a public school and designate it. Once again, a very comprehensive process has to be followed before this is done. And the process to be followed by the MEC, such as notify the SGB, the parents, the community, representatives, labor unions, because there are a lot of implications. So consultation is key, and it is provided for if you read that Section 12. Clause 13 deals with the merger of one or more schools, and it's providing that in instances where two or more schools are to be merged and a new public school is established, that section is setting out the process that will be followed by the MEC. And once again, the MEC is required by this section to notify the parents, the community, including publishing of adverts in the newspapers, listening and taking in submissions and representations, and submissions not just from the community, the SGB, but also on matters of law. And also the MEC must take into account that the names of those schools must also be published, the existing school governing bodies, and how they will have an interim school governing body if those schools are merged. That's also in the section. And other legal issues, pending, such as if there are teachers on suspension or learners or disciplinary issues, including any other operational issues. It's all detailed in section 12A of the proposed amendment. Section 14 wants to amend section 21 of SASSA, and this is the one that is going to empower the HOD to centrally procure learning, teaching, and support material. But the key word here is that the HOD may, in consultation with the school governing body. So this is not that the HOD just decides they're going to take over that process. Their words in this section read that the HOD may, in consultation, do so if it is going to be effective and if it is economic for utilization of public funds or because of uniform norms and standards. Clause 15 is amending section 22 of SASSA, and this is to empower the HOD to withdraw on reasonable grounds. Again, there has to be a reason. On reasonable grounds, and after complying with very comprehensive requirements, one or more functions of a school governing body. So withdrawal of functions is serious. So the HOD must inform the SGB of the reasons for such withdrawal and get representations from that school governing body. The section, however, does, and the HOD must listen to those representations before making that final decision. However, in an emergency, the HOD is empowered to take those functions and then can later reverse them if need be. And the HOD is also empowered to appoint people to perform those functions for a period of 3 months, but not more than 1 year. So again, a very detailed process of how the HOD can take over those powers of school governing bodies. Section 16 is amended by amending section 23 of SASSA, and this is empowering the school governing bodies to empower people from outside or within the community who have the relevant expertise to assist school governing body in the discharge of the functions. Because when you regulate the compliance that is required by school governing bodies, then the school governing bodies do not say, but we don't have the experts to do this. They are now being given power under section 23 to co-opt those experts, whether it is lawyers, auditors, or management or governance people, because there's going to be requirement for them to have good governance in the management of public funds. So that is section 23 of SASSA. Clause 17 is amending section 24 of SASSA, and this is to empower the minister to determine the numbers of school governing bodies, the election process, and the appointment in public schools for learners with special needs. It's no longer going to be the MEC. Once again, the minister must call for detailed submissions when the minister wants to do this. Clause 18 is amending section 24A of SASSA, and it's going to regulate membership of the governing body of a school with a specialized focus on talent, that new school that we spoke about, because currently this is not regulated. And they may want to have people in those bodies such as experts in the focus area that they want to specialize in, whether it's arts or sports. Clause 19 is amending Section 25 of SASSA, and it's empowering the HOD to dissolve a school governing body that has ceased or stopped to perform the functions that were allocated in terms of SASSA. Once again, the HOD must have very good grounds, reasonable grounds, to do this dissolution. And once again, a school governing body that is aggrieved have a right to appeal to the MEC. And the HOD can, if they do this dissolution, they can appoint qualified people to perform the functions of that school, again for a period of 3 months, or the HOD can decide to extend that period, but not for a longer period than 1 year. Clause 20 is amending Section 26 of SASSA, and it's providing for, this is an issue of good governance, for the recusal of school governing members, so that school governing members have to declare their interests when they're going to take decisions in meetings. If they have a direct or indirect or financial interest in the matter, or their family members, or close friends, or business partners. So, for instance, when they're discussing recruitment of staff, procurement of goods and services, they have to declare their interests. They have to also disclose personal interests where they have companies. They have to disclose gifts that they have received from service providers. And such conflict of interest is well explained in the new Section 26. Clause 21 is amending Section 27 of SASSA, and it says that no member of the school governing body will be remunerated or paid in any way for the performance of their duties or for attending meetings. It has to be voluntary. Clause 22 is amending Section 28 of SASSA, and it's empowering the minister, no longer the MEC, to determine the election of members of school governing bodies. The object or the reason for this amendment is that the norm for the election of school to norm or to bring in norms and standards in the election of school governing bodies and bring consistency in the sector. And then clause 23 is amending Section 29 of SASSA, and it provides that only a parent who is a member of the governing body and who is not employed in a school may be the chairperson of the finance committee of that school. Clause 32 is now amended by clause 24 of this bill. And this one is regulating the status of learners in school governing bodies. Before, they used to be referred to as minors in school governing bodies. It's now been changed to call them learners. And what this section is proposing is to prohibit the learners from taking part in the process of employment of educators, even non-educators. They also cannot enter into contracts on behalf of the school. So they cannot sit, for instance, in the interview panels that are considering employment and recruitment of staff in the school, and they cannot vote on resolutions of school governing bodies, and equally, they will be protected from any personal liability. Clause 25 is amending Section 33 of SASSA, and this one deals with closure of schools. So the MEC has to embark on a very comprehensive consultation process before closing a school. Once again, must inform in writing the school governing body, the parents, the community, advertise, call for comments in the newspapers, including holding of public hearings. The section does, however, provide that the MEC, if they carry out a physical verification and they find that there are no learners registered in a particular school, that can be a reason for closing it. It's also providing that if it's a primary school with less than 135 learners, the MEC can also close that school. If it's a secondary school with less than 200 learners, the MEC can close a school. But once again, MEC must give notice, as I've said, and make alternative arrangements for the learners who are in those schools, including issues like learner transport. And the MEC must also deal with issues of how those assets, what happens to the one school and the assets which were there. They must make a plan or arrange the MEC by law on how those assets devolve into the state. And the MEC must look at the interest of learners in the community. And the main reason also is for the effective use of state resources. So that's why we are encouraging that when people comment on the bill, kindly look at the whole section in detail, because there is much more than we can be able to present here today. So we are trying to summarize it. Clause 26, amend section 36 of SASSA. And this is providing that school governing bodies must seek approval of the MEC to enter into lease agreements for any purpose, including loans, any financial obligations, overdrafts, and such matters. So they must have written approval. If the lease, schools like to lease buildings for purposes of supplementing their income. If the lease is for more than 12 months, then they must have approval of the MEC. And also because of the alteration of buildings or some school governing bodies entering into lease agreements right at the end of their term, and then leaving the new school governing body in problems and leases or contracts that they are unable to deal with. So that is the new requirement by section 36. Clause 27, it seeks a technical amendment. It's just to change the word direction to directives. Clause 28, again for school governing bodies and how they manage their budgets. It's amending the current section 38 of SASSA, and it's providing that there has to be a document that explains a budget of a school, including the draft budget. And this must be made available to the parents before the budget is presented to the parents in the general meeting. So the SGB must inform the parents and avail that documents at least 14 days before the general meeting of the parents. Equally, once that budget has been passed and there are any deviations on the expenditure or whatever that was approved, then the school governing body must inform the parents why they deviated from the budget that the parents approved and the reasons for such deviation. And the section details how the meetings for the budget will be held, including that you must have a 10% quorum of the parents in the first meeting. If that doesn't happen, what happens in the second meeting? You'll find that in the proposed section 38 of SASSA. Clause 29 is proposing to amend section 38A of SASSA, and this is to extend application to a state employee who is paid any additional remuneration or financial benefit. Again, go look at the definition of what financial benefit or benefit in kind means. It means where teachers have gone over and above and a school governing body decides they want to pay them but not a salary. The things including maybe exemption from paying fees, petrol card, or such things. But again, they must be included in the budget. So you will find that in section 38A, and that employers may not hold permission for state employees to be remunerated. Clause 30 wants to amend section 41 of SASSA, and 41 is about exemption from paying of school fees. And remember, we said some parents have problems with the documents, so that when they seek to be exempted from paying school fees, they don't have documents from the other parent. Maybe they are divorced or they are separated or there is a conflict and they are unable to get information from the other parent. Now, this section is saying such a parent can actually give an affidavit to show that the other parent is either untraceable or is unwilling to provide information on their income, or they are giving you the incorrect information. So an affidavit should be accepted now by the school governing body and the schools in lieu of the documents that they were asking for before, because everything that needs to be done now is in the interest of the learner. And where a matter is before court and the parents also have court documents, schools are now required to accept those documents as well, depending on the circumstances of each parent that's seeking exemption from payment of school fees. Clause 31 is substituting Section 42 of SASSA, and this is providing that schools must keep detailed records on aspects of their financial affairs. They have to draw up financial statements within a specified time and present those financial records and statements to a general meeting. And you will see there are timeframes now that every quarterly financial statements must be prepared. They don't necessarily have to be audited. That's why also school governing bodies are now being given the power to co-opt members. If they don't have the ability to do this, they can co-opt members who can assist them to do this. And those financial statements, if you read that section in detail, it will must show the investments, the donations, the funds that have been received by the school, the expenditure, and all that must be submitted to the HOD and keep those detailed records. And then Section 32, Clause 32, my apologies, is amending Section 43 of SASSA. And this is giving the HOD the powers to authorize an investigation into the financial affairs of a school. And once again, if the HOD has reasonable cause, just cause, is not just for any other reason, maybe some misappropriation was reported to the HOD. And if the HOD deems it necessary, then such investigators can be carried out and the HOD can appoint forensic auditors and forensic investigators. Clause 33 is amending Section 46 of SASSA. And this is providing that, as we already know, no one can operate an unregistered independent school. And if they do so, the penalty is being increased now from 3 months to 12 months imprisonment if convicted. Section 34 is amending, Clause 34, is amending Section 48 of SASSA. And this one is to do with independent schools that have been subsidized. And it's providing that the MEC can set conditions for those subsidized independent schools so that they have to submit quarterly reports if so requested, and also submit audited records and accounting statements if the HOD so requires. Clause 35 as deals with substitution of Section 51. This is to do with clarifying or adding more clarity in regard to home education. And this section must be read with that section on compulsory home attendance, compulsory school attendance, which says compulsory school attendance is from the age of 6 now to the age of 15 or up to grade 9, whichever comes first, provided the learner finishes grade 9 at the end of the year. That's the compulsory attendance age. Now, this section is making it clear that learners can in fact be educated at home, but only if they are registered for such education with the department. So if a parent chooses home education, the parent must apply to the HOD for registration of that learner, and the HOD is also required to approve that application if the HOD is satisfied that that home education is in fact in the interest of the learner. So HOD is going to look at a few things. Is it in the best interest of that learner? Does the parent who is applying for home education actually understand home education? Do they also take full responsibility to implement that home education? Is the education suitable for the age of that child, for the grade and the level of that child, and the skill abilities of that child? And that's why the section is saying the HOD may, case by case, may send someone before the application is approved to verify some of these things, because HOD has been given a list of conditions that they have to fulfill in order for them to approve homeschooling. So if conditions so require, the HOD can actually visit the home and just find out whether what has been presented is correct and in the interest of the learner. This section equally provides for the responsibilities of the parents who want to do home education. For instance, they have to avail all the resources for learning. They have to monitor the learner's academic progress. They have to arrange for the competent assessor. Remember, we defined the competent assessor as an educator who is registered with SAIS. That competent assessor must do an assessment at the end of each phase. Each phase is grade R to grade 3, grade 4 to grade 6, grade 7 to grade 9. And then the parent must submit evidence that the learner's assessment and attainment and a report, so that the department is aware that the child is getting the correct home education. The HOD has the power to cancel, after consultation with the parents, that application. The HOD can also decline that application, but obviously the HOD has to give reasons. And for the HOD as well, there are very stringent timeframes for the HOD. If a parent has submitted an application for home education and the HOD has not responded within 60 days, then the section is saying the parent will deem, or it will be assumed that the application was approved, provided the parent can show that they had put in an application. So there are stringent measures on both sides for the HOD as well as for the parents who want to do homeschooling. And all these for the interest of the learner. Clause 38 is amending section 60 of SASSA, and this is to do with state liability. And it's saying that the state is not going to be liable as a result of any act, anything that is done or any omission that is done in connection with any business that is operated by a school. If you enter into a lease agreement and you did not have the correct approval and there are issues there, the state is not going to be held liable. Then clause 39 is amending section 61 of SASSA to empower the minister to promulgate or make regulations. These regulations have not yet been made. This section is just saying, Minister, you have power in the future to make regulations in respect of management of learners' pregnancy. So there is information out there that is saying the minister is regulating learner pregnancy and testing and sex education. What this section is saying, the minister has the power to make those regulations to manage learner pregnancy in the future, and also admission of learners, the norms and standards. These two regulations, the section says the minister must bring those regulations through parliament and of course through the provinces and to the public for comment. So when that happens, comments will be made in those regulations. The minister can also make regulations in the future on education districts and other issues that deal with matters that the minister may not have been able to expand in this bill. Then clause 40 is just amending the preamble of the South African Schools Act. If you read the preamble of the South African Schools Act, very profound preamble that protects the rights of learners. And now the minister is adding that there will be promotion and protection of the right to basic education. That is being added in the preamble. And now I move to Employment of Educators Act. You'll find this from clause 41. Clause 41 is amending section 1 and 5 of the Employment of Educators Act. And most of the amendments here are really technical. It's just to delete reference to basic education centers and also to FETs, because as you know, these were moved to the Department of Higher Education, but they still appear in the Employment of Educators Act. So those references are being deleted. And then clause 43 is amending section 7 of the Employment of Educators Act. And this is dealing with the promotions of the educator establishment in order to bring it in alignment with the Constitution, so that due regard must be taken in when posts are being filled, looking at the issues of equality, equity, and other democratic values and principles. And this section 7, which is being amended, it's also proposing that there's a possibility of appointment on promotion that can be made when an educator is still on probation. Clause 44, 45, and 46 is also a technical amendment, deleting some words. Clause 47 is amending section 17 of SASSA, and it's just widening the list of serious misconduct for educators. Clause 48 is also a technical amendment, but of importance to note is clause 49, because this is inserting a new section in the Employment of Educators Act, and it's prohibiting the conducting of business with the state, either in a private company or doing business with the state, and it's creating an offense that if an educator is found guilty of doing business with the state, they can be convicted up to a period of 5 years. So there are serious penalties for that. It also states that the employer must terminate an educator who is found guilty, because this will constitute serious misconduct. Clause 50 is amending section 35 of the Employment of Educators Act, and it's giving the minister the right to make regulations in regard to norms and standards, and especially staffing in districts. Section 38 is deleted by clause 51, and clause 52 and 53 are also technical amendments. And then clause 54 tells you that this act, once it is passed, will be known as the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, and it will come into operation on a date that will be fixed by proclamation in the Gazette by the President. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. We were joined by His Worship the Mayor, umnewethu uMdlalose siyabonga, siyakwemukela Mayor. We also have Councillor Coley and Councillor McKenny from, I might be butchering your surnames, please accept my apology. You are also welcome, councillors. If we have not seen other councillors, you are welcome. I did acknowledge the presence of the Department of Education officials. So I am Mfwethu Madondo, Siyabonga, Director. We are now going to, you will have noticed that I said throughout, because we want the clauses to be properly presented, all of them. Ngishilo masiqala ukuthi asizanga nje ukuzoveza ubuso ukuthi siyenzile le program. So sizocela ke umfowethu uGagashe, umfowethu Zondi, naye uzoyisho yena ngolikaMageba, naye uzoyichaza ukutolika kakufani, kodwa uzozama ukuthi ayichaze njengoba beyisho noMonica, ukwenzela ukuthi sonke sizwe. Emva kwalokho ngizobe sengichaza uhlelo lokuthi imibuzo sizoyi noma imibono sizoyemukela kanjani. Mfowethu Zondi.
Siyanibingelela nonke njengoba umhlonishwa usihlalo eseshilo ke thina ke sizotolika nje lokhu osekwethuliwe ummeli wethu. Njengoba ke sihlangene kulesi sicawu sokulalelwa komphakathi sizokhuluma ngalomthetho obizwa ngokuthi umthetho sivivinywa ochibiyela imithetho yezemfundo eyisisekelo lo mawufinga ubizwa ngokuthi iBELA B2 2022 okwenza ukuthi ke ungqongqoshe wezemfundo eyisisekelo ubone kunesidingo sokuthi kube kweqhulwini ukubuyekezwa kwalemthetho yezemfundo eyisisekelo imithetho emibili le echitshiyelwa yilomthetho sivivinywa okumthetho wezikole zaseNingizimu Afrika ka1996 umthetho 84 ka1996 kanye nomthetho wokuqashwa kothisha ka1998 sizothi ke masibhekisela kule mithetho echitshiyelwayo njengamanje soloku sisebenzisa amagama njengesasa noma iEEA ngokufanayo kodwa sibe yini isizathu sokuthi kuchitshiyelwe lemthetho zini izizathu esokuqala isokuthi kuqaliswe ukusebenza kwezinqumo zezinkantolo njengoba eshilo ummeli ukuthi bekunokungena nokuphuma ezinkantolo okuningi bekwenzeka mayelana nezinto eziqhubeka eminyangweni wezemfundo eyisisekelo manje kube nezinqumo ezithathwe ezinkantolo ezenze ukuthi ke ngokwalomthetho sichibiyelo esikhuluma ngawo ukuthi kumele ziqaliswe ukusebenza isinye isizathu ukuhlinzeka uhlaka lokuphendula lwezezimali zomphakathi ezigungwini ezilawulayo esinye isizathu ukuthuthukiswa kwesystem yokwamukelwa kwabafundi ezikoleni njengoba siyazi ukuthi kuba nezinkinga eziningi ezithinta ukwamukelwa kwabafundi ezikoleni makubhaliswa ekuqaleni konyaka nangezinye izikhathi njalo njalo isizathu sesine ukuhlinzeka ungqongqoshe ngamandla engeziwe okulawula kanye nawo kwenza ngcono inqubo yokwenziwa kwezinqubo futhi kunikezwe nama-HOD nabaphathiswa amandla okubheka umsebenzi esesihlanu ukulungisa izidingo zesifundazwe ukuthenga ezithinta ukuthenga ndawonye imfundo yasekhaya ukuxazulula ukungaboni ngasolinye phakathi kokunye ukwenza izinguquko ezithile ezibalulekile ukucacisa izinhlinzekelo ezithile ezikhona ukufaka inhlinzekelo ezingekho emthethweni okhona njengamanje kanti nokuqinisa ukuphoqelelwa komthetho futhi kube nejeziso uma kwenziwa amacala ilezo ke izathu ezenze ukuthi kwadingeka ukuthi ke kube nalo mthetho sivivinywa ochibiyela lo mthetho wezemfundo eyisisekelo kuneminyango ke nabantu abathintiwe ke singathi nje inhlangothi ezithintekayo kusukela iqalile indaba lomthetho sivivinywa ngomhla ka13 kuOctober ku2017 kwatholakala izimvo zomphakathi ezibhaliwe ezivele izihlangene ezihlukahlukene engaphezulu ka5000 kwase kuthintwa ke iminyango ehlukahlukene nabantu abahlukahlukene ukuhlanganisa inhlangano zama-SGB ukuze kuxoxiswane ngalomthetho sivivinywa inyunyana zothisha kanye nabafundisela emakhaya neNetwork nayo iphakathi kwabo bonke abathintwa ukuhlolwa komthelela wezenhlalo umnotho nakho kwenziwe futhi incomo zombiko wesystem yokuhlolwa komthelela wezenhlalo umnotho iseyas zihlanganisiwe nazo kulomthetho esikhuluma ngawo esiubiza umthetho sivivinywa esikhuluma ngawo esiubiza ngeBELA ngo9 November ku2021 umthetho sivivinywa weBELA wethulwa ekomidini lecabinet kwase kuthi ke ngo26 kuOctober kunyaka ka2023 wamukelwa iPhalamende likazwelonke futhi wagunyazwa ukuba wethulwe emkhandlwini kazwelonke wezifundazwe Manje ke sizodlulela ke ekuhlaziyweni kwesigaba ngasinye kusukulela esigatshaneni 1. Isigatshana 1 sikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa kwengxenye yezincazelo. Ezinye izincazelo ihlanganisa inkulumo njengokuthi imfundo eyisisekelo. Ukuthi uma sikhuluma ngemfundo eyisisekelo ihlanganisani? Ekuqaleni siyazi ukuthi ibihlanganisa kusukela ebangeni lokuqala kuqhubeke kuze kuyofika ebangeni lika 12. Kodwa manje sihlanganisa nebanga R lele sithi ugrade R ngokwalomthetho sivivinywa ohlongozwayo. Bese kuba nenkulumo ethi sizombiza ngomhloli onekhono lokho kuthiwa ucompetent assessor. Lokho nje kubhekisela kuthisha obhalisile emkhandlwini wothisha waseNingizimu Afrika njengoba kuchazwe emthethweni womkhandlu wothisha waseNingizimu Afrika ka-2000. Kuphinde futhi kube nenkulumo ethi corporal punishment le eyaziwa ngokuthi ukujezisa ngokushaya. Ngokujwayelekile besazi nje ukuthi corporal punishment isho ukushaya nje kuphele lapho. Kodwa manje sekunikezwe incazelo ebanzi ngokwalomthetho ohlongozwayo la umthetho sivivinya ukuthi i-corporal punishment noma ukujezisa lokho okuyi-corporal punishment kungahlanganisa noma yini ezozwisa ingane ubuhlungu ngokomzimba. Kungaba ukuyincinza, kungaba ukuyishaya, kungaba ukuyishaya ngempama, kungaba ukuyijikijela ngokuthile, kungaba ukuyihlalisa yodwa lapha kuhlanganisa nje izinto eziningi noma yini ezozwisa ingane ubuhlungu. Ngikhuluma ke nangezidingo zemfundo ezikhethekile. Kuthiwa lezi zidingo zisho imfundo ehlelelwe ukufundwa kwabantu ngenxa yezizathu ezihlukahlukene abadinga ukwesekwa okungeziwe nezindlela zokufunda izivumelane nezimo zabo ukuze babambe iqhaza futhi bahlangabezane nezinhloso zokufunda ohlelweni lezemfundo. Kodwa ke umusho othi uma umfundi ozoba neminyaka eyisithupha ngemva kuka-30 June ezoqala ibanga R ngonyaka olandelayo uyasuswa ke wona lo musho. Isigaba 2 somthetho sivivinywa sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 3.1 sesasa ukuze sihlinzekele ngokuthi kuphoqelekile ukuza esikoleni kusukela ebangeni R lapho ingane ineminyaka engu6 hayi nje ebangeni 1 kuphela ukuze kwenyuse ukuhlinzekela kwesijeziso esigabeni 3.6 sesasa sisuke ezinyangeni eziyisithupha siye ezinyangeni ezingu-12. Bese isigatshana 3 sihlinzekela ngokuqashwa kokuba khona kothisha, othisha ukuqashwa kokuthi othisha baba khona yini nothisha nhloko kanye nezigungu ezilawulayo ezikoleni. Isigaba 4 sona sichibiyele isigaba 5 sesasa sikhuluma ngeminyaka yokwamukelwa esikoleni nangokuthi ngaphezulu kweminyaka lapho sekuphoqelekile ukuza khona esikoleni njengoba kushiwo esigabeni 3.1 umzali angase uma efisa futhi ngokuvumelana nemibandela ethile embalwa abhalise ingane esikoleni ukuze iqale ibanga R isencane ngeminyaka. Uma isikole singakwazi ukwamukela umthamo omkhulu ebangeni R kumele kuqalwe ngabafundi okuphoqelekile ukuba babe sesikoleni. Sithi isigungu esilawulayo esikoleni sikahulumeni kumele sithumele inqubomgomo yesikole yokwamukelwa enhlokweni yomnyango ukuze sigunyazwe. Isigaba 5 sona sichibiyela isigaba 6 esithi isigungu esilawulayo kumele sithumele inqubomgomo yolimi yesikole sikahulumeni kanye nanoma ikuphi ukuchibiyela enhlokweni yomnyango ukuze kugunyazwe. Bese sisho futhi nokuthi ke nolimi lwezandla kufanele lusetshenziswe ezikoleni. Bese ke isigatshana 6 sona sichibiyela isigaba 6A sesasa ukuze sinike ungqongqoshe amandla okuqoka izinhlangano zangaphandle noma abantu abazokweluleka ungqongqoshe ngeindaba ezihlobene nesitatimende sikazwelonke sohlelo lwezemfundo kanye nenqubo kazwelonke kanye neyokuhlolwa kalokho okufinyelelwe umfundi. Isigaba 7 sona sichibela isigaba 8 sesasa ngokuthi esigabeni 7A hayi nje kuphela emthethweni wezifundazwe osebenzayo kodwa nomthetho sisekela waseNingizimu Afrika nesasa kumele ibandakanywe lapho izikole zikahulumeni zamukela imithetho yokuziphatha. Bese ke isigaba 8 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigatshana 7 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 8 sesasa ngokuhlinzekela ukuthi iSGB yesikole sikahulumeni kumele yamukele imithetho yokuziphatha abafundi ehambisana nomthetho sisekelo isasa lesixoxa ngayo kanye neminye imithetho yezifundazwe efanele. Bese isigaba 8 sikhuluma ngokuchitshelo kwesigaba 8A esihlose ukwenezela inhlinzekelo zesigaba 8A sesasa. Lesi sigatshana sikubeka kucace ukuthi isikole sinalo nelungelo lokusesha umfundi ngamunye futhi sibasesha noma bengelona iqembu futhi sihlongoza nokuchitshiyelwa okuwumphumela okubangelwe ilokho. Lokhu kuchibiyela kubangelwe ukuthi abafundi baqhubeka betholakala bephethe noma besebenzisa utshwala nezidakamizwa ezinhlobonhlobo, izinto ezibenza imilutha, izinto ezibanika umdlandla owengeziwe nokunye ukuthi akufane nalokho. Nangenxa yokuthi baningi abafundi abaqoshwayo ezikoleni ngenxa yokusebenzisa lezo zinto. Bese isigatshana 9 sikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa kwesigaba 9. Isigaba 9 sona sihlosele ukuchitshiyelwa kwesigaba 9 sesasa ngokuhlongoza ukuthi kufakwe incazelo ebanzi mayelana nokuyiphatha okubi kakhulu komfundi ukuze kucaciswe kakhudlwana ngapho. Bese isigatshana 10 sikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa kwesigaba 10 ngokwenezela emthethweni onqabela ukujezisa ngokushaya abafundi ukuze kuhlanganiswe ukuthi makungenziwa lapho kwenziwa umsebenzi wesikole noma endaweni ehlala abafundi. Bese isigatshana 11 sona sichibiyela isigaba 10 ngokwenezela emthethweni umthetho onqabela imikhuba evamile ezikoleni yokufikisana. Bese kuthi isigatshana 12 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 12 sesasa ngokuhlinzekela ngokuthi i-SGB yesikole sikahulumeni ngafaka isicelo kungqongqoshe sokuthi siqokwe njengesikole esihlinzeka uqeqesho olukhethekile lwamathalente athile. Inhloko yomnyango ingase sibone isikole sikahulumeni esingaqokelwa lokho futhi bese isinqoma kungqongqoshe ngalokho futhi ungqongqoshe angasasiqoke leso sikole sikahulumeni uma lokho kuhambisana nezintshisekelo ezingcono kakhulu zezemfundo esifundazweni futhi leso sikole siwalandela amazinga namaqophelo anqunywe ngungqongqoshe. Isigatshana 13 sona sichibiyela isigaba 12A sesasa ukuze sikhulume nangokuthi ezimweni lapho kuhlanganiswa izikole ezimbili noma ngaphezulu kuyosungulwa isikole sikahulumeni esisha. Indlela zokuxhumana nezinhlangothi ezinezintshisekelo kuloko mayelana nalokho kuhlanganiswa ziyacaciswa nazo kanti nezikhathi ungqongqoshe okumele athathe ngazo isinyathelo nazo ziyachazwa kulomthetho sivivinyo. Bese isigatshana 14 sona sichibiyela isigaba 21 sesasa ukuze sinike inhloko yomnyango amandla okuthenga izinto ezithile zokweseka ukufunda nokufundisa ezikoleni kahulumeni ngemva kokubonisana ne-SGB. Bese isigatshana 15 sona sichibiyela isigaba 22 sesasa ukuze sinike inhloko yomnyango amandla okuhoxa ngezizathu ezizwakalayo njengoba ummeli eshilo yangaphambili futhi nangemva kokulandela imfuneko ezibekiwe umsebenzi obodwa noma ngaphezulu kobodwa emsebenzini ye-SGB. Bese isigatshana 16 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 23 sesasa ngokushintsha isigaba 6 ukuze sikhulume nangokuthi abamele i-SGB bangaqoka amalunga avela emphakathini othile futhi nangaphandle komphakathi ukuze lawo malungu ayisize i-SGB ekwenzeni imisebenzi yayo ethile. Bese isigatshana 17 sona sichibiyela isigaba 24 sesasa ngokushintsha inkulumo ethi ilungu lomkhandlu wesigungu esiphezulu elishintsha ngegama ngelithi ungqongqoshe nenkulumo ethi igazethi yesifundazwe ngegama elithi igazethi ngokuphathelene nezinhlelo zokukhetha amalungu e-SGB yesikole sikahulumeni sabafundi abanezidingo ezikhethekile. Bese isigatshana 18 sona sihlongoza ukufakwa kwesigaba 24A sesasa ukuze sikhulume nangokuthi inhlinzekelo zesigaba 23 zesasa ngaphandle kwesigatshana 5 esikhuluma ngokuba ilungu le-SGB ezikoleni kahulumeni ezivamile zizosebenza nasesikoleni sikahulumeni esihlinzeka uqeqesho olukhethekile lwamathalente athile nokuthi igunya lokuqoka amalungu lihlanganisa negunya ochwepheshe bemkhakhethile ezikoleni kahulumeni ehlinzeka uqeqesho olukhethekile lwamathalente athile ngaphakathi noma ngaphandle komphakathi isikole esikuwona. Bese igatshana 19 sihlongoza ukushintshwa kwesigaba 25 sesasa ukuze sinike inhloko yomnyango amandla okuhlakaza i-SGB engasayifezi imisebenzi eyabelwe ngokuvumelana nomthetho futhi uma inhloko yomnyango inezizathu ezizwakalayo zokwenza kanjalo. Isigatshana 20 sona sihlongoza ukushintshwa kwesigaba 26 futhi sihlinzekela ngokuvezwa kwezintshisekelo eziqondile nezingaqondile zezimali zelungu le-SGB noma yiliphi ilungu lomndeni walo, abangani balo abaseduze noma uphathina balo kwezamabhizinisi, nokuthi lapho lezo zintshisekelo zikhona lelo lungu le-SGB kumele lihoxe okwesikhashana kulowo mhlangano we-SGB ngesikhathi kusadingidwa futhi kwenziwa isinqumo ngezintshisekelo za. Bese-ke isigatshana 21 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 27 sesasa isihlinzekela ngokuthi amalungu e-SGB akufanele aholelwe ukwenza imisebenzi yawo ngokwenezela amagama athi ngokuba khona emhlanganweni nasemhlanganweni yesikole. Isigatshana 22 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 28 ngokushintsha inkulumo ethi ilungu lomkhandlu wesigungu esiphezulu ngegama elithi ungqongqoshe kanye nenkulumo ethi igazethi yesifundazwe ngegama elithi igazethi ezinhlelweni zokukhethwa kwamalungu e-SGB yesikole sikahulumeni. Isigatshana 23 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 29 ukuze sihlinzekele ngokuthi lapho kungenzeka ilungu le-SGB lingumzali kuphela elingasebenzi esikoleni elingaba ngusihlalo wekomiti lezezimali laleso sikole sikahulumeni. Bese kuthi isigatshana 27 sona sichibiyela isigaba 32 sesasa ukuze sihlinzekele ngokuchibiyela kwezobuchwepheshe okungumphumela wezinhlelo zomthetho wezingane ka-2005 umthetho 38 ka-2005 owashintsha iminyaka yeziningi yasuka kwengu-21 yaya kwengu-18. Bese isigaba 25 sona sihlongoza ukushintshwa kwesigaba 33 sesasa isikhuluma ngokuvalwa kwezikole. Ungqongqoshe kumele abonisane, sithi ungqongqoshe kumele abonisane kabanzi nenhlaka ezithile ngaphambi kokuvalwa kwezikole. Lokuchibiyela kuphinde kunike ungqongqoshe amandla okuzivala isikole sikahulumeni ngemva kokuba elandele inqubo ebekiwe yokubonisana nenhlaka ezithile futhi esimweni sesikole samabanga aphansi ubhalise abafundi aba-135 noma abambalwa kunabangu-135 kuleso sikole futhi esimweni sesikole samabanga aphakathi ubhalise abafundi abangaba ngu-200 noma abambalwa kunalokho. Isigatshana 26 sona sichibiyela isigaba 36 sesasa ukuze sihlinzekele ngokuthi i-SGB kumele ithole nemvume kangqongqoshe ukuze yenze isivumelwano sokuqasha sanoma iyiphi injongo kuhlanganise nemali imboleko nama-overdraft okukhulunywe ngawo kakade esigabeni esesishiye. Bese isigatshana 27 sona sichibiyela isigaba 37 sesasa ngokushintsha igama elithi imiyalelo ngelithi iqondiso. Lokuchibiyela okuhlongozwayo kuwukulungisa kwezobuchwepheshe. Isigatshana 28 sona sichibiyela isigaba 38 sesasa ukuze sikhulume ngokuthi abazali kufanele bahlinzekwe ngombhalo ochaza isabelo mali sesikole kanye nesabelo mali ngokwaso ngaphambi kokuthi leso sabelo mali sethulwe emhlanganweni omkhulu wabazali ukuze sidingidwe. Sichaza nenqubo okumele ilandelwe SGB uma ihlongoza ukuchezuka ngamaphesenti angu-10 noma ngaphezulu esabelweni sezimali sokuqala isagunyazwa uma ihlongoza ukwabiwa kabusha kwezimali ngenhloso ehlukile kuleyo yachazwa isabelweni mali sokuqala isagunyazwa emhlanganweni omkhulu. Bese isigatshana 29 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 38A sesasa ukuze sisebenze nakumsebenzi kahulumeni othola iholo elengeziwe noma iyiphi enye inzuzo yemali noma inzuzo engeyona imali. Sidinga ukuba i-SGB ihlinzeke imininingwane egcwele ngesimo nobungako balelo holo. Isigatshana 30 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 41 sesasa ngokufaka isigaba 2A esisha ukuze sikhulume ngokuthi lapho umzali ecela ukukhululwa angayikhokhi imali yesikole, lo mzali angasathumela i-affidavit ewubufakazi obubhaliwe ezimweni lapho ulwazi lungenakutholakala komunye umzali womfundi. Bese isigatshana 31 sona sihlongoza ukushintshwa kwesigaba 42 sesasa ukuze sikhulume ngokuthi SGB yesikole sikahulumeni kumele igcina ama-record aphelele ngezici ezibekiwe zesimo seyimali, yenze itatimende zonyaka zezimali phakathi nesikhathi esithile futhi ngendlela ethile, futhi yethule lawo ma-record neyitatimende zeyimali emhlanganweni omkhulu wabazali. Isigatshana 32 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 43 sesasa ukuze sinike inhloko yomnyango amandla uma ibona kudingeka ngenxa yezathu ezwakalayo okugunyaza ukuba kwenziwe uphenyo ngesimo sezimali zesikole sikahulumeni, amandla ukucela umcwaningo emabhuku omkhulu ukuba hlola ama-record neyitatimende zezimali zesikole sikahulumeni, noma qoka abacwaningo mabhuku noma baphenyi be-forensic ukuba baphenye ngesimo sezimali zesikole sikahulumeni. Isigaba 33 sikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa, isigatshana 33 sikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa kwesigaba 46. Ukuze-ke isigaba 33 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 46 sesasa ngokwenyusa isijeziso sisuka ezinyangeni eziyisithupha siye kwezingu-12 esikeni lapho umuntu esungula futhi abe nesikole esizimele esingabhalisiwe inhloko yomnyango. Bese kuthi isigatshana 34 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 48 sesasa ukuze sihlinzekele ukuthi uxhaso olunikwa isikole esizimele lungahlinzekwa ngokwembandela ethile enqunywa ngungqongqoshe. Bese isigatshana 35 sona sihlose ukushintsha isigaba 51 sesasa ukuze sicacise ngokufundela ekhaya ukuthi into enjani le eqhubeka kanjani. Lokuchibiyela kucacisa ukuthi abafundi bangafundiselwa emakhaya uma kuphela bekubhalisele lokho. Bese isigatshana 36 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 59 sesasa ukuze sihlinzeke ngokuchibiyela kwezobuchwepheshe futhi kuhlinzekwe ngokuthi lapho umzali noma imuphi omunye umuntu ebhalisa umfundi ukuze amukele esikoleni sikahulumeni noma efaka isicelo sokukhululwa angayikhokhi imali yesikole, bese enikeza imininingwane engamanga noma ekhohlisayo noma inikeza umbhalo womgunyathi noma umbhalo athi uyikopi yangempela yombhalo wokuqala ube ungeyona uyoba necala. Isigaba 37 sihlongoza ukufakwa kwesigatshana, isigatshana 37 sihlongoza ukufakwa kwesigaba 59A sesasa ukuze sihlinzekele ngezindlela zokuxazulula ukungaboni ngasolinye uma kwenzeka kuba nezingxabano phakathi kwe-SGB nenhloko yomnyango noma yiphi ingxabano phakathi kwe-SGB nongqongqoshe. Bese kuthi isigatshana 38 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 60 sesasa. Lesi sigaba sikhuluma ngecala lombuso lapho wenze noma yiliphi iphutha noma wenze umonakalo othile othinta isivumelwano ngenxa noma yimuphi umsebenzi obewenziwa isikole sikahulumeni. Bese kuthi isigatshana 39 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 61 sesasa ukuze siveze ukuthi ungqongqoshe unawo amandla okwenza imithethonqubo ethinta ukusingathwa kokukhulelwa kwabafundi, ukwamukelwa kwabafundi ezikoleni kahulumeni, ukwenqabela ukukhokha kwamaholo angagunyaziwe noma ukunikezwa kwezinye izinzuzo eziyimali noma izinzuzo ezingeyona imali kubasebenzi, ama-norms and standards amancane ezikhungweni ezithuthukisa othisha basesifundazweni, ukuhlela izindima nemisebenzi yezifunda zezemfundo kanye nolwazi lohlelo lwemfundo kazwelonke. Bese isigatshana 40 sihlinzeka ngokufakwa kwebinzana kwisandulelo sesasa ukuze kuhlelwe imfundo yezingane ngokuqhakambisa nokuvikela ilungelo lemfundo eyisisekelo. Manje sesikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa komthetho wokuqashwa kothisha ka-1998, umthetho 76 ka-1998. Isigaba 41 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 1 se-EEA ngokususa izinhlinzekelo eseziphelelwe isikhathi ukuze lo mthetho uhambisane kahle nohlelo lwezemfundo olusha. Bese kuthi isigatshana 42 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 5 se-EEA ngokususa izinhlinzekelo eseziphelelwe isikhathi ukuze lo mthetho uhambisane kahle nohlelo lwezemfundo olusha. Lesi sigatshana sisusa izinkulumo ezithi isikhungo semfundo yengeziwe nokuqeqeshwa, isikhungo semfundo eyisisekelo yabantu abadala, isikhungo nethi isizinda. Isigatshana 43 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 7 se-EEA ukuze sisebenze nasekuqhakambiseni nanoma yiphi i-educator establishment futhi siyenze ihambisane nezinhlinzekelo ze-Citation of Constitutional Laws Act ka-2005 umthetho 5 ka-2005. Bese isigatshana 44 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 8 se-EEA ngokuhlongoza ukuba kususwe inkulumo eseyiphelelwe isikhathi ezithi umkhandlu nethi isikhungo semfundo yabantu abadala nokuqeqeshwa. Bese kuthi isigatshana 45 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 9 se-EEA ukuze sihlinzekele ngokudluliselwa kothisha kwesikhashana komunye umnyango, kanti isigatshana 46 sona sikhuluma ngokuchitshiyelwa kwesigaba 11. Sona-ke sihlongozwa ukuba kususwa amagama asephelelwe isikhathi athi izikhungo nelithi izizinda. Bese isigatshana 47 sihlose ukuchitshiyelwa ukuchibiyela isigaba 17 se-EEA ngokufaka ibinzana elandisa uhlu lwezenzo eziwukuziphatha kubi kakhulu, kanti isigatshana 48 sihlose ukuchibiyela isigaba 18 se-EEA ngokuhlongoza ukuba kususwe inkulumo esiphelelwe isikhathi ethi isikhungo semfundo yabantu abadala futhi sibandakanye umnyango wezemfundo wesifundazwe kulesi sigaba. Bese isigatshana 49 sihlongozwa ukufakwa kwesigaba 19 esisha kwi-EEA esenqabela othisha ukwenza ibhizinisi nohulumeni noma babe abaqondisi beyinkampani kahulumeni noma ezizimele zenze ibhizinisi nohulumeni futhi ihlinzekele ngokuthi ukwephulwa kwalokhu kuhlinzekelo sekushiwo kuyicala, kanti isigatshana 50 sichibiyela isigaba 35 se-EEA ukuze senezela amandla kungqongqoshe ukuze akwazi ukwenza amazinga namaqophelo okuqashwa kwabasebenzi ey'fundeni. Isigatshana 51 sona sichitha isigaba 38 se-EEA esesiphelelwe isikhathi. Bese kuthi isigatshana 52 sona sichibiyela uschedule 1 we-EEA ngokuhlongoza ukuba kususwe ukuhlinzekela osekuphelelwe isikhathi ukuthi isikhungo sikahulumeni semfundo engeziwe nokuqeqeshwa noma isikhungo sikahulumeni semfundo yabantu abadala. Isigaba 53 sona sihlose ukuchibiyela uschedule 2 we-EEA ngokuhlongoza ukuthi kususwe ukuhlinzekela osephelelwe isikhathi ukuthi isikhungo sikahulumeni semfundo engeziwe nokuqeqeshwa noma isikhungo sikahulumeni semfundo yabantu abadala siphinde sihlinzekele nangesikhathi isikhalo okukhulunywa ngaso kuschedule 2 okumele sibe sesisingathiwe ngaso. Isigatshana 54 sona sihlinzeka isihloko esifushane salomthetho ohlongozwayo bese sihlinzeka ngokuthi lo mthetho mawuqale ukusebenza ngosuku olubekwe ngumongameli ngesimemezelo esikugazethi. Uphele lapho-ke ummeli wethu sizoyibamba lapho nathi. Siyabonga.
Siyabonga kakhulu Gagashe ngokuzama ukuthi sonke sizwe kahle le nkulumo. Babumeya bengengachaza ungakafiki ukuthi njengekomiti lezemfundo senza nje osikuthunywa umthetho osisekelo. So namhlanje umsebenzi wethu ukulalela nje njengamalunga somhlangano omphakathi. Ngiyabonga nje ukuthi usitholile isikhathi sokuthi ube nathi ngoba phela njengomholo omphakathi nani ninezwe libalekile ekuthini sishaye imithetho. So ke sihlangene ngomthetho osichibiyelo wezemfundo namhlanje. Ngichazile ke sizokwenza kanjena ke kwenzela ukuthi kungabi ne disorder. Ngizonipha inombolo ngoba ngiwazi amagameni nebongozeni akona ungahloniphi lokho. Kodwa mawusufika kulokhu kokukhuluma uzoqala uzisho igama nesibongo. Uzisho ukuthi ngiphuma kuward bani ngoba sonke ngisho la eSouth Africa akekho umuntu ongaphume ewadini. Ngiphuma eWard bani kumasipala eMandeni uthi umasipala eMandeni ngenza isibonelo ngokuthi uphuma kwaDukuza uthi ngiphuma kwaDukuza ngenzela ukuthi ngingakukhumbuzi lokho sorry mkhulu ngakukhumbuzi ke lokho. I'm appealing that I'm to give you numbers. What we'll then do when you get the mic, you introduce yourself, you tell us where you come from in terms of your ward. You then make your point. Ngicela futhi ukugcizelela bakithi singakhulumi inkinga zokuthi ubaba uNyanda ephahla khona la ngawalethe ngakhona amanzi namhlanje umhlangano ongakho lokho namhlanje ukuthi umgwaqo ngakithi awukho umhlangano ungokudingida udabala lomthetho sivivinyo wezemfundo ngiyazi ukuthi kuyenzeka sibone umeya bese sivukwa umoya sifuna ukukhuluma lezo zinto 18 ezasekuhlaleni. Ngiyacela kwenza ukuthi ngabe ngathi asihloniphani ngoba ngosuke bese ngiyakumisa manje sishamthetho ke kusetshenzwa ngesikhathi futhi ngeke ngacela ke ukuthi singaphinde osekushiwo futhi ungadonsi kakhulu ngoba ngizokuvimba bese kuthiwa kwafika inye insizwa lapha yathi yasibizela emhlanganweni kodwa yasinqamula asibambisane nje ngalokho. Ngizoqala ke ngithatha inombolo lezi u10 ebese siyaphendula ebese sithathe ezinye sibone ukuthi lokho kusifikisa kuphi. I will start taking 10 hands, so it means it's 1 kufika 10 bese siyaphendula. Uyaphendula ke udadewethu la thina nje njengamalunga siyabukela nje ukuthi uyaphendula sithatha lokho kufanele sikuthathe, so asenze kanjalo siyazwana ngithi hayi ukuthula abathi ukuvuma ngakithi kunomfowethu la unombolo 1 ngeke umuntu adlule ku 3 minutes manje kuyabona ke laba abangibuza abawaphethe lamawasha akhalayo, so alinda mfowethu mzonibala nonke eqala kwenzela ukuthi nisukume nize kulayini kodwa ngiyazi zobe no10. My councillor here is number 2, umfowethu number 3, my councillor here is number 4. There is a hand, a lady, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you are number 5. There is another hand, I think there's a lady there, you are number 6. Baba uzoba number 7. Amaye ngekho akusho lutho akuphoqelekile. Unewethu number 8. Number 9. 111 gone. So ke siwu9 okwamanje. Is there another hand? Isandla Islam. Uzoyikhohlwa ngasekugcineni unombolo 10 kwenza ukuthi ungayikhohlwa inombolo yakho mfowethu unombolo 10 siqedileke ubabonile mfowethu ake asiqhubekeni ke bafowethu.
Ngiyabonga mphathi hlelo. Angibingelela amalungu eshamthetho, ngibingelela ama-officials e-department, ngibingelela u-district director wethu Dr. Madondo phakathi kwethu, amakhansela wonke nobaba umeya okhona phakathi kwethu. Mphathi hlelo mina bengewona umbuzo kodwa I wanted to welcome the presentation. Bese ngisho futhi ukuthi ubukeka sengathi i-South African schools. Oh sorry. Usithembiso Goodwill Mthembu. Kamka kwi-Department of Education ilembe kamka ku-Ward 11 chairperson wami ubaba uMagwazi uDeputy Mayor. Chairperson, I welcome the presentation. Kodwa futhi okunye bengifuna ukusho ukuthi ubukeka sengathi i-South African Schools Act number 84 of 1996 kwakudlulwa nje kugijinywa. Kubonakala sengathi leso kuyiyona-ke esinenyama, akusewona amathambo odwa ebekade siwathola kwileyana eyayikade ikhona ekuqaleni lene-amendwayo. Ngoba lena enye inkinga esijwayele ukuba nayo ukuthi maphi ama-documents that are required uma u-admitting ngalo. Uma ingane iqhamuka ngaphandle kuwumuntu wangaphandle one-permanent resident permit kanjalo noma i-asylum seeker, besiba nama-challenges kulezo zinto. Uma kuyi-biological parent njengamanje-ke kusho ukuthi sokuyakhanya lapho esiya khona, Chairperson. Kodwa-ke futhi isifaka no-grade R, siyambonga kakhulu uhulumeni wethu ngokuthi afake no-grade R, kodwa asizwa lutho ngama-ECD centers because ama-ECD centers asusiwe kwa-DSD azofakwa kwi-Department of Education. Kusho ukuthi ngenye indlela o-circuit manager bazomaneja into enganagama kahle, engaregulate-wa yipolicy ekhona eqhamuka kwi-Department of Education. Enye futhi into engiyibongayo kakhulu ukuthi i-learner attendance isizomonithwa nayi-SGB. Uthisha uclass teacher kuya kuthisha omkhulu kuya kwi-SGB. Bonke labo bantu fanele bebe ne-role ukumaneja i-learner attendance ngoba kade ihlupha kakhulu leyo kwi-absenteeism. Bese ngithi-ke Chairperson, enye into engiyibonayo futhi kakhulu la, i-final decision will rest with i-HOD no-MEC when it comes to ama-admissions because we have a problem. La iy'kole khona zingafuni ukuthatha abantwana abasuke beqhamuka emzini ehlwempu ngoba bazi ukuthi they cannot afford to pay school fees. Kusho ukuthi-ke le bill iyasi-addressa lezo zinto ama-challenges esihlangana nawo thina njenge-Department of Education nanjengomphakathi. Abanye futhi abantu basebenzisa i-language policy ukuthi bevimbe abanye ukuthi bengakwazi ukungena. So it's important manje ukuthi uma ubheka ukuthi i-language policy sokufanele kube ukuthi ayikwazi ukuba umgoqo evimba abantwana abaqhamuka emzini ehlwempu ukuthi bengakwazi ukungena. Njengoba ngithi kwakuyi-draft leyana kade siyisebenzisa, uyabona le manje iyona-ke siphile sikhuluma into ezwakalayo. Ngoba uma ngabe leya South African Schools Act ibithi akube ne-code of conduct. Kodwa ingaspecify ukuthi maphi bengawalist ama-cases misconduct ukuthi maphi lawo ma-cases. Bokuzokuba ukuthi abantu babhala lawo nje asuka kubona basuke bewacabanga ngaleso sikhathi. Notshwala bokungabalwa. Kodwa njengamanje sesibona ukuthi utshwala ngoba we have a problem yotshwala, iy'ngane eziconsume i-alcohol esikoleni bese idala i-disorder bese uthola isikole singasaphatheki. I-issue ye-major Chairperson isiveza nenamba yey'kole ukuthi uma kuyi-primary school ivalwa uma kwenze njani, uma kuyi-secondary school ivalwa uma kwenze njani. Yingakho mina ngishayela izandla ibhili ngisumela lokho angibuzi imibuzo mina. Bese ngithi-ke siyayemukela naleyo recusal uma kuyine-member ye-SGB ngoba kwesinye isikhathi uma kune-issue ye-friendship it was difficult ukuthi udile ne-issue ye-friendship bokukhulunywa ngamindaba yama-families. Kodwa manje la we see something which says close friends, which we can be able to deal with ama-issues ama-friends uma kuthathwa ama-decisions. Bese kuba ngokuthi Chairperson, sengidlulile kule. Sengiyavala Chairperson. Nayi futhi lena ecacisa ngokuthi i-budget, you cannot change i-budget njengothisha omkhulu without the approval of parents meeting. So kusho ukuthi-ke they need to vote for i-budget for the first time. Ma kunama-changes, they need also to convene another meeting ukuze futhi bayivotele ma kunama-changes. Yonke leyo nto ibingacaci kahle ekuqaleni ma kune-deviation noma i-reallocation yama-funds. Siyakubonga kakhulu-ke le ndaba-ke yokuthi i-home education isifanele ibe ne-competent assessor. Abazali bebezenzela noma yini esuka ekhanda labo. Okungekho umuntu oyi-competent assessor obekwazi ukuthi assess ingane ikwazi ukudlulela kwi-grade elandelayo kuma-issues aphathelene ne-home education. Kodwa-ke manje sesiyakubonga ukuthi sesizokwazi ukuthi sithole ama-reports ukuthi i-teaching and learning ihamba kanjani ekhaya kumntwana. Ngiyabonga.
Good afternoon to the Honorable Mayor, the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, and members of the Portfolio Committee and other stakeholders. My name is Privy Makan. I'm a Ward Councillor in Ward 22 in the KwaZulu-Natal local municipality. I am opposed to the BELA bill in its current format for the following reasons. The first being mandatory grade R. So there has not been adequate feasibility study done into where the additional funding will come from. The Department of Basic Education does not have the additional 12 billion needed to implement this for all learners. Additionally, parents who are financially unable to send their kids to school due to the lack of finances may end up with a criminal record. The second point is the regulation of the homeschooling sector. So the department has failed to meaningfully engage the homeschooling sector regarding the most appropriate ways to assess learners. The department has also been unable to satisfactorily address the concerns of parents regarding the registration of learners and inspection of premises. In closing, I hope that there's adequate internal capacity to effectively deal with the volume of submissions and objections from members of the public. Thank you.
Ngibingelela ubuholi bonke kusola kume legislature yonke bonke yabaholi all protocol observed. Cha mina kwamako okuningi nje kuthathu kuphela ngu-BW akamthetho ngisuka eward 2 ngomhlali khona kodwa ngisebenzela eward 16. Cha ngifisa ukubonga nami ilokhuzana i-report imnandi evela kwi-legislature. Kodwa kukhona iy'ntonyana ey'ncane engikhala ngazo nje ey'ntathu. Ngibheka lapha ngithi khona okuzokuzwa okuvikela othisha njengokuthi uma uthisha useklasini nakho uvukelwa ingane noma zingane mhlawumbe kushiwo ukuthi ingane niyopanishwa mhlawumbe iminyaka emingaki noma esikhathi singanani angizwa okufana nalokho kusho ukuthi sibona othisha ngathi bona-ke abavikele kodwa kuyingane ngizwile kona ukuthi kuyandiswa from inyanga ey'thile kuya kuy'nyanga ey'thile mhlawumbe mina mangisebenzisa i-corporal punishment kulona uthisha ekwenze enganeni ebese kuphinde futhi kuba yilokhu kwama-ECD centers uhlelo oluhle ukuthi uhulumeni ukususile lapha ko-ESD wakuletha kwa-education kodwa kubukeka ngathi bekungakahleleleki kahle ngoba uma usathi ubheka abantu abafundisa khona imihlomulo etholakalayo abatholi imihlomulo efana nabothisha bonke abafundisayo kanti nabo babhekene nazo ingane bafundisa zona iy'ngane bese ngiphinde ngibonga-ke lapho ukuthi u-grade R is also included laphaya kodwa futhi ngiphinde mina ngibakhalela othisha baka-grade R nangakho kwemihlomulo futhi ukuthi bekofuze phela nakho kuchibiyelwe ngifisa ukusubmitha ukuthi nakho akubhekeleke ngoba phela basuke befika behothisha phakathi kothisha bonke abakhona esikoleni nabo imali yabo umahluko ube mncane kakhulu kunothisha khona esikoleni ngoba nabo basuke bevuka begqoka benza konke futhi besebenza njengothisha bonke abasuke bekhona e-foundation phase la besuke beseva khona ngifisa ukuthi ngisubmithe lokho ngiyabonga. I do support.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Tammy Colley. I am a ward councillor in Ward 6, and I am from KwaZulu-Natal municipality. Firstly, thank you for the presentation. I did notice first thing I saw was the KZN legislature's core mandate of lawmaking, oversight and public participation. And I think I'm echoing a sentiment that has already been raised, where I am hoping that all the emailed objections that have been coming through on this BELA bill will be taken into consideration. There was general feedback from communities that they were at work and could not attend these hearings. So I trust that the participation mandate of the legislature will certainly be taken into account. I have a couple of issues with this BELA bill, and I currently am opposed to it in its entirety. My main issues is with regards to taking away so much from the SGBs. So our government is really supposed to devolve powers down to as local areas as possible. But with regards to the language policies, and as well as the admission of admission requirements and determining those policies. This current BELA bill seeks to give all that power back to the HOD. And all of us that have had children in school knows how difficult it is to get answers out of the HODs. So to take away this vital function of SGBs, I think it's going to be, at the end of the day, slightly problematic. So in conclusion, I'd like to reinstate that I do not support the BELA bill as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. My name is Eta Miller. I'm employed as a provincial manager for FETSAS, and I'm a resident of KZN. As the Federation of South African School Governing Bodies, we oppose the following three clauses of the Act: the admission and language policy of public schools, the central procurement of learning and teaching material, and the quarterly reporting on all income and expenses. I specifically referred to a previous meeting between the Portfolio Committee and the Department of Basic Education, where Mr. James Mdlebe, Director for Education Management and Governance Development at the DBE, proposed that the sections in the Schools Act concerning the admissions and language policy of public schools remain the same. It seems that this recommendation made by the DBE has not been taken into account by the committee and is not reflected in the report of the committee. It is worrying that the DBE suggestion that the provisions in SASA regarding language and admissions remain unchanged have been wholly ignored by the Portfolio Committee. It seems that it was indeed not noted or acknowledged by the Portfolio Committee. We trust that the KZN provincial legislature will look into the submission by the committee as it concerns due process, the democratic process, and concerns the two most contested clauses in the bill. With regards to central procurement, are you aware that KZN is still being funded with regards to national norms and standard at a rate of 179 Rand per learner instead of 277 Rand per learner? Need I point out the chaos that was caused by the central procurement for the National School Feeding Scheme? I rest my case.
Greetings to everybody. My name is Anthony, and I'm from Ward 3. I would like to oppose with this regarding with a few issues that from grade R, there has not been feasibilities on studies on where these additional funds will come from. The Department of Education does not have this 12 billion, which is needed to implement for all the learners. Additionally, parents who are not able to send their children to school due to lack of funds may end up with criminal records. I oppose to this bill and believe that it should be scrapped because some of our children that we are living in different times and generations, which is wrong to be exposed to such situations.
Angibongi Bingelele. Igama ngosibusiso owamtshali Ward 16 lunga le-SGB elindayo. Sibonge izethulo esesiyitholile. Kodwa bengafisa mhlawumbe kafushane ukungena kule yokuthi yebo ingane uswazi kuthisha akufanelanga isho njalo umthetho. Kodwa ngendlela isimo esiyiyo ey'koleni angitholi kunento esilekelelayo mhlawumbe ngaba plan B. Yabona nje izithi ingqondo yami mhlawumbe uma bengenzeka
ngikufuyele umphakathi thina ndlemnyama nje ngoba ezethu izikole eyiwohlo kakhulu ngenxa yedakamizwa longamnanhlonipho nazo zonke into ezenzeka ezikoleni eyigcina othisha ibafaka phansi kwengcindezi ongakazi uzoyibona. So bengafisa ukuthi mhlawumbe uma ngenze mhlawumbe yethi ngibule nje njengenhlolo emphakathini wami singenze njani ukuze kube khona uma sithi okay siyavuma induku mhlawumbe asayingabi kangaka mhlawumbe kodwa uma kuthiwa ayikho etsholo okay siyavuma yini engasilekelela ekwenza ukuthi phela ingane ngoba ngabe lokho ingane uma ungazoba nangane siyazi ingane zabamnyama kwenzekani ilo nto engiyifisayo ukuthi mhlawumbe uma singaba no plan B. Ngiyabonga.
Ngibingelele mphathi sihlalo amalungu esishayamthetho usokhaya umeya bese ngithi all protocols observed. Ngicela ukuthi ngisho ukuthi ngaphambi kokuthi ngiphawu
igama baba
bengisaya khona. Igama lami nguGatsha wakwaNtumba. Ngiphuma eWard 79 eThekwini kodwa ngisebenzela umnyango wezemfundo eLembe District. So bengifuna ukuthi ngithi angiqale ngokuthi ngibonge angiphazamisa sihlalo. Ngibonge ngomthetho sivivinyo ngibonge nalomthetho sivivinyo ukuthi usithatha usise phambili njengezwe. Kodwa ke noma sebekubalulile okuthile okuthanda ukuthi kube ubuthaka sengisele nokubodwa engibona ngathi kubuthaka kulomthetho sivivinyo ukuthi lomthetho sivivinyo clause 2 ukukhuluma ngeqinisekiswa kokuthi izingane mazibe sesikoleni okufanele zibe sesikoleni. Kodwa manje ubusufika uyaphela ku-15 years. Othi mawubhekisisa ubone ukuthi kusho ukuthi sithi to grade 9. Manje ziningi izingane eziphelele endleleni. Benginesiphakamiso ngoba umnyango wezemfundo emazingeni aphansi uze uyophelela ku grade 12 ukuthi sikhuphule iminyaka ize iyokhava nomntwana efunda ku grade 12 ukuthi kube yimpoqo ukuthi singabazali kufanele siqinisekise ukuthi umntwana uhamba isikole aze siqede ukuze sivikele isimo sokuthi kube nezingane eziphelele endleleni. Ngibonga kakhulu mphathi sihlalo lo mthetho sivivinyo ngiyawusupporta bengikhuluma phela ukuzichaza ukuthi ngiphambi ngapha kusho ukuthi ngikhulumela umnyango bengikhuluma on a personal level ngiyawusupporta usisa phambili iwona futhi engicabanga ukuthi uzogcina uphasile. Ngiyabonga mphathi sihlalo.
Mphathi wohlelo ngiyabingelela nami ukuthi-ke kubona bonke abantu abakhona la okweigaba zabo umphathi dolobha ukube akuve ukuthi ngihlonipha umphathi wohlelo ngabe mhlawumbe ngibanga ngisasukuma ngoba ebengizokusho la okunye sebekukhavile kodwa-ke ngokuthi ngihlonipha umphathi wohlelo angisukume ngibeke okokuqala ukuthi uzwakala kahle igama lami konje uSem ngakwaZwane ngikhona la kule ndawo yala eMandeni ngihlale Ward 3 nase Ward 13 ngilwa no 3 nje so ngibona umuhle umthetho uzwakala kahle umthetho sivivinyo kunezinto ezimbalwa eyokuqala ngifisa ukuqala ngalena esikhulunyiwe yendlela yokuyiphatha kwengane esikoleni ukuthi iziphi izinto ezibonakala ukuphambana nomthetho ebese kubekwa futhi ukuthi ikuphi okungafanele kwenziwe enganeni kungacaci kakhulu ukuthi uma ngabe ke ingasezukubekwa ngisho eqosombeni lapha eceleni kufanele yenziwe njani ungakuhle ukuthi umthetho ukuveze lokho ukuthi kufanele yenziwe njani uma isiphambukile ngoba inkinga zisuka kithi emakhaya thina emakhaya siyayitshena ukuthi ngizokushaya wena yeka lento siphakamise nezwi manje uma isifika esikoleni uthisha ephinde ebe umzali futhi ngoba uphinde usho njalo umthetho ukuthi uthisha uphinde abe umzali enganeni mayesenza lokho sekwenza sesesikoleni sekuyicala lokho so kukhona la ngathi kuyashayisana khona kancane kodwa kungakuhle ukuthi kuvele ukuthi kufanele enze njani ngoba kungenzeka ukuthi besifika esikoleni siphathwa ngenye indlela ekhaya ifika iphathwa ngenye indlela ungayidida futhi nayo endleleni yokuthuthuka iye phambili okwesibili engifisa ukubeka okungaveli indawo la ukube kusemhlanganweni obaba umeya bese ngizokholwa kwi-order ngiyabonga nje ukuthi ngila kwi-legislation ngeke ngikholwe kwi-order ngoba kukho lokhu engikhuluma ngakho la ama-governing bodies aphinde abe ngabantu okuthiwa babhekelela ama-assets impahla yesikole nakho konke okunye kwesikole kodwa kunenkinga lana ukuthi izinto ney'mpahla zesikole ayiphephile uma ungabheka leli hholo sikulona singene esangweni saba nabantu abaligadayo ubusuku nemini leli hholo leli uma ungabheka i-equipment elangaphakathi zihlalo in the main okula kodwa uma uya esikoleni kugcwele izinto ey'ningi ney'biza kakhulu isikole asigadwa ebusuku nasemini kunomuntu nje ogcina ukuthi ubani ongenayo ubani ophumayo kungangcono ukuthi i-Department of Education ibheke indaba yokuphepha nokuvikeleka kwempahla ey'koleni ngoba kudala ingxaki enkulu kugcina sekumosheka imali enkulu yomnyango okungawuba imosheki kube asekuntshontshwe zonke lezi zinto ey'la ngaphakathi noma zizalinyazwa bese kufanele ukuthi kuyokhokhelwa leyo mpahla leyo kanti kube bekunomuntu ohlala laphayana bekungabuzwa kuyena ukuthi lezi zinto zihambe kanjani ekhona ngalawo mazwi nje amafushane inkosi nibusise good night ukube kusesontweni kuthiwe uyayikhetha inkosi noma uyikhetha inkosi kuthiwa manje angizwakalanga ngisho ukuthi ngiyahambisana nalomthetho sivivinyo I do
ngiyabonga ngimpingelelana yonke egameni lenkosi umthetho isivivinyo uzwakala okay zamanga wamanga u-6 endleleni siphihle ukuthi kuthiwa ngawangadolini abatana balwethu yena u-64 years ubizwa ngaleso sikhathi babengile esikoleni awukodwa ngishushuka nje anganomakhelana bese esithipini impela uyabona saphethe
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. And we have noted the comments. And what I want to say is some of the matters involve policy. So we will only be able to answer an issue that is raised regarding the bill. And also the people who commented and we could not hear them, we have circulated some papers where you can add your comments in writing, please. So we encourage you to put what you've commented in writing.
Sizwile ukuthi ezinye zezimvo eziphakanyisiwe nemibuzo kuthinta inqubomgomo. Kodwa njengoba sizophendula la ngaphambili sizogcina nje kakhulu emibuzweni nasezimvweni ezishiwo eziphathelene nalomthethosivivinyo. Okunye kwenzekile ukuthi ngesikhathi niphendula bekubuye kungezwakali kahle ngenxa yohlelo lwesound. Sizocela ukuthi nakuba niphakamisile imibuzo yenu la kulesi sithangami kodwa futhi niphinde nibhale phansi ukuqinisekisa ukuthi nayo iyacatshangelwa.
Some of the questions I'll answer two at the same. The one question where we're encouraging you to write is the question on ECD. What is your proposal? Because you're asking a question, why is ECD not there? The law says from grade R onwards, but what exactly do you want to see being regulated in ECD? So if you can please put that down in writing for us.
Okunye kokuphakanyisiwe la izimvo ezihlukahlukene bethinta uhlelo lwama ECD imfundo yasezinkulisa nithini ngayo nithi makwenzeke njani ngayo ngoba abanye babuzile ukuthi abazwanga lutho lishiwo ngama ECD kulo mthethosivivinyo. Yilokho ke okunye kwezinto esicela ukuthi nibhale ngazo nithumele izimvo ngoba kuhlanganisiwe kule ndaba esikhuluma ngayo namhlanje. Namhlanje sikhuluma ngemfundo eyisisekelo eqala kwa grade R iqhubeka ize phela kwa grade 12.
Number one, apart from ECD, number one also spoke that it's their view that SASSA was rushed. So we've noted your comment. The only thing we can say is the process, as I presented, started as far back as 2017. And so many people and different sectors have been consulted. And at every consultation, the department would take comments, go back and review that draft. I have even attended public hearings myself. I'm a parent. And I gave comments on one of the clauses to do with liquor. And I was monitoring it and following it to see whether it was removed. And in fact, it was removed. So I don't know what is a comprehensive period for consultation, but this process has been going on for more than 6 years at least.
Okunye kokuphakanyisiwe ngesikhathi semibuzo ivelile ukuthi abanye banomuzwa ukuthi isasa engathi jahiwe iyajahwa indaba yayo. Kodwa kuyavezakela ummeli ukuthi sekuyisikhashana isetafuleni lendaba kusukela ngo-2017 kwaxhunywana neminyango ehlukahlukene ey'thangameni ey'hlukahlukene ukuze kutholakale izimvo. Manje-ke kodwa uthi uyaphawula uyakuqaphela lokho okuphakanyisiwe ukuthi engathi kube khona ukujahwa kwalento yesasa.
Number two, we note the comments that they are opposing the bill, and she was also reading out a lot of other comments. We kindly request that you submit that to the lady who was submitting documents at the back there. You can see her Google. Whatever comments you have in writing, yes, this lady, please add them on the paper we've circulated and hand them back to that desk. And also anybody else who has any other comments, please ask for a document and you can put down your comments.
Uyashokela phake ukuthi udadewethu lohlelo langaphambili obenginombolo 2 uthi umbonile ukuthi ubefunda phansi izimvo zakhe ibhale phansi kodwa waseveza ukuthi yena uyaphikisana nalomthethosivivinyo. Uthi uphela ukuthi lezi zimvo zakhe azibhalile azithatha aziyise lapha kusisibhuku nangehlelo kulela tafula njengoba zibhaliwe ngezifunda phansi.
Comment number 3 also was about ECD centers and asking what will happen if a child rebels in class. This is also connected to the code of conduct. And another question that was also asked about, what do we do if we don't have corporal punishment? So corporal punishment or any other kind of beating, all those things we described, it's assault. It is a crime. So there must be another way. As an educator, you have been entrusted with somebody else's child. So there must be another way as an educator, that you're trained as an educator, to deal with that child without assaulting them. And the code of conduct should address what happens in a classroom. We cannot dictate that. Those are matters for the school governing body.
Yasho ukuthi indaba yama ECD iyinkulisa iphinde iyaphakanyiswa futhi, kodwa agcina kukhona manje indaba yokujeziswa ezikoleni. Uthi uzwile lapho babebuza ukuthi njengoba ke manje kuthiwa iyavalwa lento yokujeziswa kwezingane ezikoleni, zizoqondiswa kanjani izingane uma manje ivukwa ubundlobongela, mhlawumbe ivukela lapha eklasini? Uyasho ukuthi kufanele kutholakala ezinye izindlela ezikahle zokubhekelela lokho, ngoba ukushaya ingane noma ukuyizwisa ubuhlungu noma yiphi indlela ukuyihlasela, lokho kuyicala umuntu angaboshelwa lona.
Comment 4 about the emails that we have received. Yes, we can confirm we have received, as at today, over 4,000 emails. And if there are still more people want to send comments, they can continue sending them. And we note your comments about the powers of the school governing body being taken. And if, again, there's anything you have as an alternate to what is in the bill, it is your right to put it down in writing and say, as an alternative to what is proposed in the bill, this is what we are proposing.
Uyasho-ke ukuthi izimvo esizitholile kuze kube namhlanje zingaphezulu kuka-4,000 esizitholile ngama-email. Wasesho ukuthi futhi-ke siyasiqaphela nesikhalo esiphakanyisiwe esithinta ama-SGB, ukuthi ama-SGB engathi aseyaphucwa amandla. Kuthi-ke uma unokuthile okucabangayo ukuthi kungalungisa lokho, ucela ukuthi ubhale izimvo zakho uyithumele, bese uyasho ukuthi kunalokho okushiwo la kulo mthetho sivivinywa, napho okunye wena okucabangayo ubona ukuthi kungasilungisa kahle lesi simo sokuphucwa kwe-SGB amandla.
Comment number 5 regarding central procurement, we have also noted that comment, and we also request that you kindly also put it in writing for us and submit. All I can add is the bill is saying this is a consultative process. It is not a must that the HOD comes and takes over procurement. And I underlined the words, the HOD may in consultation.
Uthi-ke namaqondana nohlelo lokuthenga ndawonye emnyangweni ngaphansi kwenhloko yomnyango, uzwile okuphakanyisiwe ngalo. Uthi-ke noma ukuthi unombono ohlukile, ukuthi ungabhala nje phansi bese-ke udlulisela phambili izimvo zakho-ke ziyobe seyicatshangelwa. Njengoba sihlangene lana, lesi sigcawu sokulalela komphakathi siwuhlelo thizeni lokuthi kuboniswane kutholakale izimvo ezihlukahlukene ezingaba usizo sikwazi ukuya phambili.
Comment number 6 raised a few issues, and one of them that they are opposing the bill because where will the fund comes from? And when we have consulted with the department, what we have been informed is there is no bill that can go up to Parliament before the cabinet has also approved and put funds aside. Every bill is accompanied with a certificate of financing. So we want to believe that the minister is not passing legislation that she will be unable to implement because of funds. But on the question of parents who don't have school fees, you're opposing it because parents who don't have school fees, we kindly refer you to the exemption clause, which is even making it easier now for parents by expanding the documents which are needed. Thank you.
Okay ke mayelana no comment number 6 okukhuluma ngezimali ukuthi uma kuleli hlelo lemfundo eyisekelo sekwenezelwa manje no grade R ibanga R umbuzo uthe imali zalokho ziyophambana uyasho ke la ummeli ukuthi hayi lokho sekuhleliwe umbongosho bengeke ahlongoze lolu hlelo imali isabelo mali kungahleliwe lokho kusona ngakho ke asikho isidingo sokukhathazeka izimali zoba khona.
The next one I want to comment is the proposal that grade 12, that compulsory attendance do not end at grade 9 or 15 years. And the comment was that we should make a proposal that they finish school at the age of 12. But what I'm aware of is
ukuthi kube into ephoqelekile ngabantwana ukuthi babe sesikoleni makungapheli lokho kwa grade 9 ophawulile la uthe lokho makudlule kuze kuyofinyelela kwa grade 12 uzokhuluma ngapho ke manje.
Not just learners, there are many laws which regulate the rights of learners. And those who know about the different children's acts, at 16, children have a lot of rights. Opening bank accounts, making a will, consenting to a lot of other issues. So if at the same time a learner has all those rights in other acts, and you are also forcing them at 15 to continue to be in school, I think there would be a conflict. We do, however, note the comment, and maybe it is time for all these laws to be regulated and to be put together and considered. So we note that very important comment.
Uthi-ke lokho sikuzwile-ke ukuthi kube iphuzu elibaluleke kakhulu kodwa yasho ukuthi asikwazi-ke ukuphoqelela izinto ezithile ngokwalo mthetho sivivinya ngoba nabo abafundi iy'ngane kuneminye imithetho ezivikelayo kwezinye izinto manje asifuni ukuyithola sesiphoqelela okuthile ngapha bese uthola ukuthi lokho esikuphoqelelayo sekuyashayisana nezinye iy'ntshisekelo ezikweminye imithetho bese kuba nalento ekuthiwa conflict of interest ukushayisana kwezintshisekelo.
And the last one is why school governing body members are not being remunerated. We've also noted that comment, and it is put there by the minister. It is one of the comments that we'll be forwarding. Thank you.
Uthi-ke nendaba yokuthi-ke kungani amalungu e-SGB wona kungafanele aholelwe uthi-ke ulizwile ngalelo phuzu lizodluliselwa phambili-ke nalo.
Thank you very much, Siyabonga. Nizoqaphela la ukuthi ummeli akaphenduli ngokuthi ubani right ubani wrong. Because at the end of the day we want to hear as many voices as possible. Because these laws if this bill becomes the law, it will affect us, all of us. So that's why we must own what the process. So what they were attempting to do here is to acknowledge the comments, not with an idea that we are opposing any view as a legislature and as members. We are taking all the views. Fortunately, myself and other honorable members, we have a platform where we will also put our views across what we think of the clauses as they were read here. So we take all the views as views that must be taken into account. When we go and debate, of course, as politicians, it's different when lawyers debate. I know members are making notes as well, so that when it's our turn to make comments and debate, we are able to make contributions. So imibono yenu njengoba niyibeka iyezwakala yonke. Futhi njengoba beqopha abaqophayo izokwazi ukuthi iphenduleke, kodwa ngiyavumelana kukhona la besibuye singezwe khona kahle ngenxa yomsindo mhlambe. Kukhona ade bejoyine kulezi zinto zamakhompyutha nabade bebhala imibono yabo njengoba ade sibheka. So yonke leyo mbono ebalekile. Ngifuna ukuthi ke ngoba ngifuna siye ngaseqedeni. Ukhona umuntu othi hayi konke lokho kushiwo. Ngoba ngizwile nje isikhalo se-governing board okukaZuka nje ngikuzwile ukuthi awu asinikwe phela ke ukuthi ingane uma ingasashawa sizoyidisciplina kanjani. Ngizwile umbono othi imali izophumaphi yalomthetho. So uyatheke kodwa ukhona othi owami umbono uhlukile nawo yonke le ekade ishiwo, enzela ukuthi ungaphumula uthi kazowapi yena lo mfana osivalele singakhulumile. Othi nje kuyo yonke le mbono ebibekwa owakhe useceleni kodwa uhambisana nawo lo mthetho ungabi seceleni. Manje ngibona nothuzwana lapha kade ngamgcina. Mawukuthi nje umbono wakho uthi ngeke usale ngaphandle ngoba kuwo wonke ngabaphawulile awu. So ngibona izandla embili ke. Soqala ngawo etatwethu ngize ngomfowethu eduze kwakho ngigcine ngobaba untanga yethu lapha.
Uzamambatha wakadlala ePelmthiyane Special School eMandeni. Okwami nje kukodwa ukuthi i-age yabantwana base-special school ne-age yabantwana baka-mainstream akufani. Bayafika ku-special school ezoqala ngawufika esena-13. Uyafika futhi e-special school eqala ukuzofunda ena-16. Ngicela niba-consider abantwana base-special schools. Ngiyabonga.
Mazi Manqele, Ward 18, umnyango wezemfundo. Owami umbono angazi ukuthi noma kuzothiwa uhlukile impela, but ke ngubona ngathi uhlukile. Because ithi into asingayi-practice indaba yokujezisa abantwana esikoleni. But bona abasijezisi nako sijezisi. Basibulala. Ngesigameko esithile ungazi noma kade wawukade umjezisa bese kubekela ibhubu lokubulala ngalelo langa. Asisizwa-ke isijeziso sabo uma ngabe sekubulele wena othisha. Ngiyabonga.
Sanibona. Ngithi ngibonge kuzo zonke inhlalo ekhona la ezifikile la eMandeni. Kodwa ngingomunye mina okhona la eMandeni, ngihlala eWard 18 ngisebenzela eWard 17. La kuyi-special school njengoba desho omunye usiselwa ethu se-FM isibongo. Ngibaba umdluli mina. Ngisho njalo abaningi. Le age group ngempela thina iyasikhathaza thina special schools. Ngibekhala ngayo umama lapha. Mina-ke benginesicelo ukuthi bengicela ukuba labantwana abakhubazekile or i-assessment ezochaza ukuthi lo mntwana lo fanele ukuya kwi-special school noma akafanele. Bengicela lo assessment at least iqale la ko-grade R. Wathini iyasilimaza njengoba desho lo asisi lo. uthi efika la umntwana uthola useshawa isikhathi asakwazi ukumnika lokhu ebese usukumnika nansi ke futhi enye into engiyicelayo njengoba sikuma special school sinenkinga yabantwana bethu kufika lesikhathi la esithi usefike kule age lokuthi ngakaphume esikoleni singazi ukuthi somthatha simise sithola lonto inkinga enkulu esibhekene nayo ngenxa lomntwana lo akekho la azoyiswa khona uthathwa nje ohlaliswe ekhaya usiphatha kabi ukuthi ngizothini usesikhathini la angathola ukuthi angadlala abantu bezwe ngizathi ngeke nje nomuntu wesifazane ngithi mina useqedile lapha e-special school kodwa manje akaqasha ndawo njengoba ngaqasha ndawo uyogcina isisulu salabo abanemali bezibazomnika impilo kunjalo nalo mfana okhubazekile bagcina sebenjani sebenikele edakamazweni umphakathi zikhungo zemfundo zikhungo zonke ezikhona siyacela ukuthi sibhekele thina abantu abakhubazekile kuningi esisele khona yabonga
No, Siyabonga. I think, Monica, it's really just an addition of what we need to consider. The issue of age when it comes to special schools, that it must be looked at. The issue of the security of teachers, it's the second time. So akuyona manje ngifuna ukukhuluma naye umfowethu lo omphazamisayo ngithi hayi sekwesibili vela njengoba sekulomhlangano ukuthi kuyezwakala ngezingane kodwa kushiwo lutho ngothisha nabantu abasebenza ezikoleni so ngifuna ukuvumelana ukuthi iphuzo eselike lavela elivezwe umfowethu lapha emuva ukuthi akuyezwakala ukuthi ingane ingashawa kwenziwe njani kodwa kusho lutho ngothisha engicabanga ukuthi iphuzu okufanele silibheke ukuthi umthetho uthini ke nge-security ne-protection yabantu hayi othisha nje wonke umuntu osebenza ezingeni lezemfundo ubaba ubegcizelela on the issue of the special schools and age that the act might have to look at that issue. Kukhona iphuzu elivelile, you touched on it, and I think it's an issue that we need to raise as well. The issue yama cities, it's an area. There's a great area how the department is supposed to administratively deal with. It might not be here, but it's an issue that we will have to raise and find out how we deal with it, so that we don't make laws that are not clear, because people it's easy for people to get away with something that is not clear. Then they say no, but the law was silent on this matter. So ngicabanga ukuthi ngilomaphuzu siyavumelana ukuthi umphakathi waseMandeni abanye bayawuvuma lo mthetho kodwa futhi bayawuvuma ngemibandela ethile ukuthi ayi kodwa siyawuvuma lo mthetho kodwa kukhona esicabanga ukuthi kungawenza ube ngcono kakhulu uma kungabukwa ngiright mangisamaliza kanjalo. Bakhona abathi abayivumi abawuvumi inhlobo kodwa bakhona abathi siyawuvuma kodwa manje nilungise ukuthi lo mthetho ungaba umuhle kakhulu. So ke kungcono ukuthi sikuvumelane kanjalo ukuthi ke laba bakwazi ukubhala ke sebeyoqoqa ke ngoba ziningi indawo esazoyihamba siphelele eMandeni sizoyihamba nje indawo eziningana la KwaZulu-Natal okuzama ukuthi siqoqe imizwa yabo bonke abantu singephelele sonke sabantu bakwaZulu-Natal ngafanele mhlawumbe emuzisiMabhida siphindele kuze kabe ka10 ukuze baphelele abantu bakwaZulu-Natal kodwa siyayizwa imizwa yabantu. Ngiyafuna ukugcizelela lokho ngoba wekushaye nje sengikhuluma ngathi ke ukuthi kuthiwe ibhaleni imbono yenu ningayibhali bayibhala abanye bese ngazi ukuthi bayiningi bese ngazi ukuthi ibona abaningi ngoba bayibhalile imbono yabo manje bayibhale bebaningi bese kuthiwa hayi kodwa nina niyaganga abaningi nje abantu abathe so ke asibhaleni ngoba ayisho ukuthi uzowazi isilungu lento le ubhala nje ngolimi lwakho ngisho ngafundela ingane ithi ayibhalele kodwa ibhalele ngolimi lwakho kubalekile ukuthi sifundise lokho ngoba kwezinye izinto sihlawa ilokho nje uthe hey kodwa imbono yabantu miningi kanti ababaningi ukuthi bona babebaningi nje ukuthi babhale phansi so ngiyacela ukuthi ningaliyeki lelo thuba kuvalwa nini kuphi when is the last day of written submissions 20th kuthiwa-ke ngomhla ka-20 kubhaliwe ke kuthunyelwa kusisi uGugu bekuphumile kwisolezwe kwaphuma na kwi-Mercury nakuselangeni kubhaliwe ukuthi utholakala kanjani ukuze imbono yenu singayifeli amathe ukuze imbono yenu ngoba ibalekile imbono yenu nani nibe nayo angisezusukuma ke mina ngifuna nje ukunibonga nonke ngizocela ke ngokuhlonipha ubaba uNyanda yephahla asibongele kumalunga bese ke isimemezelo engizosenza ukuthi usisigugu kukhona elizodlula kukho lapha kodwa ama members seyitsheliwe ukuthi cha abawabalanga laphana so mesiphuma la agoduke igubhe amalungu omphakathi kuthiwa ayabaliwe kulokhu kokuthi nithambisa amathe so angicele ke baba umdlalo osewumeya asibongele avale futhi umhlangano wethu
ngiyabonga kakhulu mphathi wohlelo aphinda abosihlalo wekomiti ngiqale ngixolise ngokufika late isihlalo ngibeke ngabambezeleka lapha komunye umsebenzi kahulumeni njengoba ngibona ngiyelo la siqhuba khona uhlelo lwe-EPWP la uhulumeni azame khona ukubonelela abantu bakithi abamnyama abangathathi intweni ukuthi ube khona uchatha ufakayo ekuthenini bathi uma besebenza lokho abakwenzayo emgwaqeni yethu bakwazi ukuthi kube khona abakubekayo eziko so hayi ngoba bengawuhlonipha umhlangano kodwa ngiyalelwa nje zifundiso la ngisuka khona ukuthi ngaso sonke isikhathi asosondelana nalabo abantu abanhlwempu so lolu hlelo ke lwe-EPWP lula emawadini solusebenzisa kakhulu ngoba sinabantu abaningi kakhulukazi besimame abangathathi intweni omunye nje uze washo ukuthi mntanami ukube ngaba lokho lolu hlelo baba ngilwazi usize engibhekene nalo la ngiphamka khona so lo hulumeni ke sihlala benisakuleyo program ukuthi ngidlule kuyo bese ke ngidlulela nje lapha ngixoxa sihlalo ukuthi mhlawumbe kothisha bethu laba bohlanga abamnyama othola ukuthi technically bayashayeka lapha mabefika kulezi izikole ezibizwa ngo-private nezithize ubonakala engazi ukuthi bona kuthiwa abakwazi ukufundisa bahanjiswe kuma-workshops amaningi kanti kuyindlela yokubakhipha kulezi izikole ukuze basale laba bebala befundisana bodwa bese beyikhipha lezi zethu futhi bona laba bebala bathi uma bethatha iy'ngane bazibheke ngokuthi zisuka kuphi athi ngeke siyithathe ingane engasuki kule ward lapha isikole esikhona khona ukuze bekwazi ukuthi bona ngoba beqoqene belapha ya bafakana bodwa kulezi ikole bese kuthi lezi zethu ezimnyama abamnyama bengabe besathola ukuthi basebenze khona kodwa ke ngiyayixoxela nje mhlula ukuthi sebethe ukuphuma lapha bengifisa ukuthi baluzwe kahle lolu daba ngoba sinalo uhlelo olunjalo lukwelenzeke lapha kwezinye izikole zakithi zabebala obona ukuthi awu kade ngifunda khona lapha ecollege sekuthiwa lapha mangifika angisakwazi ukufundisa. Sibonge kakhulu nje ukuthi iportfolio ukwazi ukuthi ukhethe ukuza lapha eMandeni kulo masipala odlondlobalayo novubele intuthuko nje kuzaphuma nawe uzoyibonela nje ubuphuma uze kule arena. Sibonga kakhulu Hlanga. Sibonga kakhulu kubameli bebekhona abalekelelayo nabatolikayo. Sibonga kakhulu kwilunga lephalamende uLinda Hlongwa, ilunga lephalamende uKika, ilunga lephalamende uKawula, ilunga lephalamende uMthethwa, ilunga lephalamende uShinga uNgubane abangama-members eportfolio committee ekhona lapha sithi asibonge kubona. Sibonge kakhulu ku-chief director wethu Baba Madondo, iDondolicious ihleli nje komfowethu lapha umfowethu Gatsha bahleli nje lapha phasa ngizothi nimbona ukuthi uhlele eduze kamfowethu Gatsha la umfowethu esisebenze naye lapha eminyangweni. Sibonge kakhulu kuma-officials omkhandlu wethu education okamasipala amakhansela akhona othisha omkhulu abaningi angibabonile abayingxenye ne-supporting staff sonke esikhona ebesilekelela. Sibonge nabesound abasenza ukuthi siphumelele. Sibonga kakhulu baba uhlala usenjika yizo wangihola lapha nosahola ukukhuluma uhlalo lokho kuyakuthanda ngoba ukwayihola i-youth league la okusho ukuthi ukuba progressive wakho kunendlela yokuya phambili. Sobonga kakhulu ukuthi niphinde niyibone indawo yangapha eLembeni indawo yalapha eMandeni ukuthi niphinde futhi nisivakashele uma niletha ama-programs anjenganalawo. Nami ngilizwile lolu hlaka oluthulwayo nami ngithi angiliphakamise uma seliphakanyiswe uMangethe walivuma wathi luyilo. Hayi nami sengiyavuma-ke ukuthi luyilo nami ngilizwile siyali-accepta siyali-adopta nokunye-ke uma-ke kukhona iy'nhlelo njengoba beshilo nathi lapha singalekelela ofisini abafisa ukubhala si-submit ama-arguments wethu ngoba uzonikwa nje 3 minutes wokuthi upresente la kanti ungakwazi ukuthi okuningi ukhona ukuthi ukudetaile ngokubhala ngakuthumela kuthina ofisini sikwazi ukuthi siphinde sixhumane nabo nama-addresses lawa ashiwoyo akwi-department ukuthi akwazi ukuthi alekelele kakhulu ekuhambiseni. Baba uhlalo cha lapha-ke kula eMandeni nje ubukhethile ukhetha impela indawo ey'koleni zethu cha siphefomile and futhi siphefomile futhi siyilonto. So it's very good significance to choose this place ukuthi ube la ukuthi hayi lapha kuyasetshenzwa when it comes to education. Ngokwenza njalo ya uyabona-ke uyayethi uma eqala nje ukuhlaba inkomo umuntu endaweni nathi ningibonile ngihlaba inkomo emikhanya kude. Siyabonga umkhanya kude bafowethu kodwa-ke njengoba kade ngisho-ke Sihlalo ukucomplimenta the-programs yokuwenza i-education fashionable ne-performance eyenziwe othisha omkhulu bethu nothisha ne-department lapha eMandeni sizobe sibaklomelisa nabantwana. Ukhona esizobe sibanika usizo lokuyoba-register okuzobe kuwuxhaso nje olusuka kumasipala okuyilo masipala-ke oholwa-ke ngokobuqotho bey'mfundiso zenhlangano ka-African National Congress ozobe uyiqhuba-ke ukuthi umntwana umuntu omnyama afunde aye ezingeni eliphezulu. Nawu baba umchunu nje kade siyiphasisa naye le budget ukhona lapha
ukuthi lezi ingane ezenze kahle nothisha ngoba siyakhohlwa ukuba acknowledge nothisha abakade benza lo msebenzi ngalezo nhlelo zethu sasifundiswa wena ke baba ke usasengale ku youth league ukuthi i-education is the apex priority senze njalo ke kulamasonto azayo ekhomeliseni lezo ingane sizonimema nje director sizomukela sibonga kakhulu. Umadondaza angibulalela ngiyazi ukuthi naye uzoba unumber 1 ngonyaka ozayo sikufisela vele ukuthi ube unumber 1 mfundisi wonke nje ama districts unabe unumber 1 so nelembe lo number 3 ukude kabi sifuna lapha phezulu so ke siyabonga kakhulu siyabonga imeya siyanibonga baphathi bezemfundo nothisha siyababonga nabazali siyababonga nabafundi siyazi ukuthi iclass ka 2024 izokwenza kangcono kakhulu nathi sihamba KwaZulu-Natal siyiqhenye ukuthi siKwaZulu-Natal abakuhlonishwa nje ngoba bingelela kufanele ukuthi awu sabona umhlonishwa ka 86.4 bajabula kabi kodwa siyazi ukuthi kuzolokhu kwenzeka kuba ngcono masiqhubeka siyabonga kakhulu kusasa ngiyobhalisa abangabhalisile ukuvota nangesonto nibakhumbuze emakhaya angithi ke ukubhalisa akusho ukuthi uyovotela abantu usabhalisa nje wenzela ukuthi mawuthatha isinqumo ungatholi ukuthi usuvaleke ngaphansi so into ebalekile lokho njengabantu baseNingizimu Afrika ukuthi silibambe iqhaza ekuthenini izwe lethu liphethwe kanjani ni labo ke abahamba ngeinqola engathi ngashayela kahle nifike niphephile emakhaya nibe nempela sonto enokuthula uNkulunkulu abe nani amen.